Alrighty, I think we're live. Yes, we are. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 169, What Makes a Fight Scene Interesting? And this is by, let me get his name, the YouTuber Super Eyepatch Wolf. This is a 1.03 million sub YouTuber. This actual video is about 4 years old and has 1.2 million views. So this is not, some small little dude. He's got some quality videos, and this is an actual video I think everyone can respect and watch and go, wow, great video, but I got some questions. And that's the kind of refreshing difference of videos we get on Smudcast once in a while whenever they get voted on. So, we're happy to have that. And in case anyone doesn't recognize who the second person is in the chat, that's Mark. So hi, Mark. How you doing?
Hello.
Hey. Okay. So this is a 14-minute video. This should not take that long, but I'm going to have a lot to say, so I don't know how long I'm going to ramble on for. But we do have a specialist in the chat. I don't like making arguments from authority, but when you're anecdotal and you have so much to say, you might want to listen to a guy. So that's Crazy Philosopher. Crazy, tell us what is it that you're interested about this video?
Oh, well, mostly this is because I have a history in martial arts. I did overall 14 years of martial arts in my life. So basically
Doing
half
what
of my
martial
life.
arts?
I did 7 years of Kung Fu, 2 years of Kendo, 1 year of Karate, and 4 years of Ninjutsu. Wait, is that-
What karate?
Finally, we have a Kendo master here.
Oh my God.
I
What did you?
I forgot which school of karate it was. I was not that interested in karate because I was doing at the same time also ninjutsu, and that was mostly took up my focus.
Why did you do so many at once?
I don't know. I really like martial arts, and I was about to really get into European martial arts, but because of the lockdowns, the club is.
I remember meeting a few friends of mine who grew up into martial arts. I actually met one guy, his entire life, not only his dad was a Sambo instructor, but his entire life was martial arts. And he was like working at a convenience store in one of the community centers. He knew about 20 different martial arts. That was when he was in his 26, I think. And it was everything from Hapkido to Taekwondo to jiu-jitsu, all sorts of things. But he was always saying how amazing his dad was because his dad was training the Russian military and came to Canada.
Yeah. Since I remember, since I was 9, I did karate for karate Shotokan karate for about 7, 8 years, maybe. I can't remember how long it was, but I got to purple belt.
Wow.
In Shotokan.
Shotokan, my buddy actually told me about that. Every time I say Shotokan, because he listed them, I listed them back, he would put his hands in like one hand in front of the other. Like that's the stance. You must do that stance in Shotokan karate, which I thought was funny. Then he told me the rules. You can't punch in the face in competition.
Do you want to know how much Shotokan has absorbed my life? So eventually I did it. And then after I graded to my first belt and I went to red, then my parents thought it'd be a good idea. And they pretty much ran ahead of me in terms of grades, and they're now black belts, and they run their own dojo underneath my old sensei's dojo banner.
Wow.
Huh.
So yes, they still run to this day, apart from coronavirus. So a lot of my life has been absorbed by karate.
Oh my God. The stories, Shiny, that's awesome. But the stories this guy would tell me, he would exercise constantly. Like when he was in the shop and there's no business, he would just start doing he would sit down and start doing crunches. It was hilarious. While he's waiting in the snow, he'd be running on the spot or doing push-ups. Like this guy was just constantly, I'm standing still for more than a minute, something's wrong. I'm either meditating or I'm working out. And I was just like, are you what is wrong with you? It's like,
Ninjutsu was so fun. We had a small little dojo that didn't have any heating, so during the winter we just all wear as much clothing as possible and throw each other around and grapple and everything to keep warm. That was fun.
So, yeah, and sometimes his friends would come by, and it was hilarious. Like one guy was a jiu-jitsu guy. He was always trying to grab this buddy of his. I mean, these guys, their outlook on life was just so strange and humble. And I remember because I was working at a hockey arena. You know, I'm Canadian, and and watching all the fights break out. And every time it would break into the stands because there's a lot of crazy hockey moms, I would only have to look at my friend Vasil, and I'd be like, no, we're good. We don't need you. We're okay. Because he would go on the ice if ever there was a problem, and there never was. But he always say, it doesn't matter where I go, if it's on the ice or the stands, I'll take care of it. I don't want anyone to get hurt. Like they're very, very careful with everything they do. So if anything were to happen, they would be the ones to rush in. I don't know if there's the two types of people of the world. There's the guys who run towards a fire, the guys who run away from a fire. That's the mentality. They're always there.
And the guys that stand there and just watch the world burn. That's me.
Yeah,
I just stand there and watch it burn.
Get some sausages. Yeah, I know. That's what I would do. But
oh man, this reminds me of in ninjutsu we learned all even lethal techniques and everything, and so the instructors were always, look, that's how you do it, but don't do it.
You can kill a man. Don't kill a man. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you can do is you can snap this guy's neck, but don't do that.
But they even teach you how incredibly easy it is, and then you go through your life going like, shit, it's way too easy to kill a human.
Yeah, killing is bad. We all appreciate the fact.
Yeah, definitely don't kill anyone.
Once you're taught the lethal force or the use of lethal force, whether it's martial arts or guns or chemistry or any kind of biology, it's like, oh, this is dangerous. You have extreme respect for people.
Don't do it.
Oh yeah, not only that, but like say that there's people who are against the NRA. I've met so many people who love hunting or love guns, and they are the nicest, most conscientious people I've ever met. And they treat guns like they're moving like nitroglycerin around. It's like, oh my God, like you got a dismantled whatever Kalashnikov, and oh my God, it's beautiful. And they treat them like they're babies. It's amazing. So they have high respect for lethal weapons and the art and craft of these things. And some of them are antiques. Some of them are heritage pieces from their family. So it's not just self-defense. There's a whole culture behind learning how to beat the shit out of someone and not doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, when we learned the lethal technique, a fellow club member told me about the one time he actually had to use it because it was either his life or someone else's. But he said that to this day he doesn't know if the other guy survived, and he just described the expression on the other guy's face once he punched him in the throat, like with hitting a specific part of the throat. And he said he will never forget that, and he wished he never would have to do that. So I was like, yeah, that's big respect from that. You never want to get into that situation.
I remember the same mentality of people.
I wonder what the situation would have to be that you have to kill someone instead of, I don't know, doing literally anything else.
Oh God.
Oh well, it's just basically the thing was that he was held by two guys and punched constantly, and so he just reflexed from him. That kind of situation where you get into the situation, you don't know if you will survive, or what to do, and you just reflexively do something. And because you've tried a certain thing, you do that thing. Or because you know about it and you know it's effective. I'm not telling everything in detail because that would take too long, but yeah.
So no, there's lots of scenarios of stories I've heard as well, which are pretty scary. And luckily, all of them did not involve anyone dying. But there was a lot of human organs and blood removed from someone. So you have to be careful of how that all finished. But gladly, I am not this kind of person, so it's all stories. It's all just interesting things to hear around the campfire.
All I say, it's good to learn to defend yourself, but don't kill anyone.
There you go. Okay, all right.
So I just love killing. Here I go killing again.
Oh, no. No more Kagavara quotes, please. Dad, killing's fun. Oh boy!
Stop it, Johnny.
Message coming in.
Okay, Joe Crazy. What makes a fight scene interesting for you? Oh God! First off, I never use the word interesting when I'm describing something, and if I do, someone tell me. I'll recant my words.
Well, this sounds like subjective to me, but like your subjective reaction.
Sure. I mean, everyone likes Star Wars for the Star Wars things, the lightsabers, the force powers. Those are cool to watch in a fight scene. So that's a standard thing. Why you watch a instance of a franchise? Why do you like Harry Potter? They got magic. They got cool outfits at school. There's all this weird, whimsical setting I don't know of. It's fantastical. Like those are the basics of those sorts of stories. So it goes with the territory. It goes with what you're watching. So with fighting, it's the same thing. Guns, swords, laser blades, like Johnny Mnemonic was that laser whip thing. Cool stuff like that. I can still remember The Princess Bride, how the swords, I don't know if those are real swords or just prop swords, but they seem to be bending a lot when they were spinning them around. So, and that's why...
Who could forget the time that a real sword was deflected from an actor on Lord of the Rings?
Really?
Who could forget it so much that I forgot the name of the actor? I think it's the guy who played Aragorn.
Was that when he got his thumb nearly chopped off or something like that? Or was his toe? I can't remember which one it was.
Oh, no. You're thinking of when he slammed his foot into a helmet that was real.
He
kicked the helmet.
Yeah, that's real. What was it? Oh, wait. I'm trying to remember. Who was it that got a real sword thrown at him in Lord of the Rings?
I don't know.
I can't recall.
It was Aragorn that like he had like a reflex that he grabbed an arrow, I think, or like he just like moved out of the way.
No, there's a moment where he blocks a sword with his own sword that's being thrown at him.
Well, anyway, there's lots of accidents that happen in choreography in movies, so I don't know how they would accidentally get lethal weapons, but that's what happened to Brandon Lee. I don't know how that happened, but what a crazy story where he loses his life over a prop gun that fires a real bullet or something. Like, wow, that's just horrible. So, yeah, no, there's lots of things to like, and that's why we can enjoy movies when you see these fight scenes. It goes like, wow, this guy's using.
So apparently, what I'm thinking of was from the first movie. He deflected a knife of an urukai, and apparently it was a real knife,
oh boy,
not a prop.
Yeah, the forest fight, yeah.
So we like to see these fantastical things played out on the screen, and hopefully and thankfully they're not real, but that's the only chance we get to see them because, again, fighting in life is bad, very violent, very dangerous.
Message coming
to
in.
see these things, war dramas, martial arts, it's always interesting. It's kind of the reason why we like things like Gundam, these animes that have crazy over-the-top animation of fighting, that you can enjoy the technical visualization of these things, not necessarily the tactics and strategies, but the visual Michael Bay-ness of it all, the explosions and lights and all the amazing stuff that happens as a result. Because usually the good stories have good reasons why characters are doing these things. War stories.
I think Voice wants to be on, by the way.
Voice wants to be on? All right, Voice. I'll get him. Yeah. He wants to be on.
We need another Brit in here.
Another Brit? Oh, yeah. We need our 2 Brit minimum. Come on, Voice.
Diversity quotas.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm only here because of quotas.
All right. The Swiss.
Yeah, the Central European quota.
The European Swiss quota. There's not enough Swiss in this goddamn group. What's wrong with you people? All right. Let's get going. Jake the Surgeon. For me, it's like a wrestling match. The story and characters leading into it make it interesting. All the flashy choreography in the world won't save it. You see, this is what makes it fascinating because I know uncles and aunts who watch wrestling, professional wrestling, as well as soap operas. And to them, it's the same thing, which I find very interesting. Because
I can't watch wrestling. I just can't.
No, I can't either. But
it's far too fake.
It is so funny.
For me, I just see that it's fake, and I'm like, I don't believe the fight.
I'm gonna jam my elbow into them, and I'm gonna stomp on the ground to signal to them that they need to have this really fake reaction.
Well, okay, you see that these days.
On the ground, pretending to be dying.
Quite a few techniques actually are proper. It's just the reaction of the people that are have techniques done to them isn't quite proper. So that's what always distracts me. Back
in the 80s, I don't know if you guys remember the pay-per-view stuff that you couldn't get on normal TV, but those were like steel cage matches with the WWF, And apparently, I had older friends watch those and my uncles as well. They had a lot of blood and guts, like people were getting like punched and bruised up, and they hated that. They really didn't like that for whatever reason. That went on for about 8 to 9 years, and then they said, okay, let's try and get a little more drama going and more acrobatics going. And you see that change from violence to acrobatics. So they weren't just hiring big strong men. They were hiring people who could take a hit, who could learn to fall properly, who could do flips and backflips sometimes. And that's in the 90s. You see that resurgence of wrestling, not as violence, but as choreography. And a lot of focus on drama, like you're married to this person, or you said something bad to my girlfriend, and all this other stupid bullshit, which is so ridiculous. But it adds to it. It's the story behind the crazy matches. So anyway,
I think, as mentioned before off stream, what makes a good fight scene isn't just story or choreography. It's like how we judge the criteria of acting, as I said before. You need good, like acting. Acting requires a good actor. It requires good writing, and it requires a good director to tell the actor how they need to portray these lines, and that makes a good performance. But then it's a similar thing when it comes to choreography. You need to have a good story. You need to have the choreography to work well. And then there's other elements which I haven't quite identified and broke down into our criteria, but you do need it all to work. So not only do you need a good story, you need the choreography to work. If the choreography is shit, then your fight scene falls apart. If there is no good story, or we don't care about the characters, then the choreography also falls apart because we just lose any kind of interest in the fight. So I'd also say that the choreography in itself is also like a story. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and you have to treat it like that in a sense. It's got its own rules that you have to pay attention to.
I think that's a great point, because we look at really bad, not only bad choreographed fight scenes, but they're flashy and look attractive, but the reasons why they're on. We always go back to the Last Jedi for everything.
Yeah.
And we see that throne room scene. Why are they fighting again? We don't know why. We don't understand why the Red Guard is coming after them. Why would the Red Guard care if their king is dead or their leader is gone? What is the point? Were they sworn to an oath to defend Snoke and that everyone must die?
It was part of Snoke's life insurance.
Yeah, maybe. It could, there's all these, and all we needed was one reason.
The Red Guard.
the Red Guard condition, yeah.
I'm still convinced that they were just people that were just paid to look, I don't know, scary.
Well,
so they're just right there in the corner. It's like, hey, this job pays well.
Oh, yeah.
We don't do anything. We just need to stand there and look imposing, and we're never actually going to need to do any fighting. And then all of a sudden, they just don't know what the fuck they're doing, which is why they get beaten so easily.
If you had Rey a reason to fight everyone and not why was she defending Kylo in that moment? Is it because Kylo protected her, or because Kylo killed Snoke? What was the reason for them not to fight each other? Is it because of she saw the good in Kylo and is still waiting for that moment? Okay, we can go with that. And Kylo wants her? Okay, we can go with that. But why not just blow these guys away with your force powers and just tell them to go away, or tell them to now worship me, or whatever the stupid reason they are for fighting them? So this is kind of important. And Shani was saying, yes, it's a combination of things, but the focus is the story. And if you don't know why things are happening, it doesn't matter how good it looks. It doesn't matter how well choreographed it looks.
Well, I would exactly call the Last Jedi well choreographed, or even looking good, or anything being good. It's just got so many cuts that it tries to distract you from, its lack of quality.
Oh yeah, remember the fan? I showed you the fan Revan video I liked, where it was a very quick fight scene. It wasn't too big a video, and they're arguing what's good, what's bad, what does it mean to be the Jedi. Power is only important as what it's used for. And there's that weird dude in the, I don't know, hockey pads and black guard, whatever, with the Jedi chick, and she's basically Bastila Shan with the double-bladed lightsaber. And I don't know what the hell that guy's doing. It looks so goofy. But the rest of the story keeps it going. Whereas the other fight scene with the guns is kind of like, what the hell are those guys doing? Why are they fighting so stupidly? So
I would also classify things like because as before, there are different kinds of fight scenes. You get everything from again, swords, guns. There's even a mix of like martial arts. When you go with the mix of martial arts with guns is something you see in John Wick. So again, there's lots of different things and the different criteria for different contexts that these fights are in and what weapons they're using. I would also stretch that. I would include things like space battles in a fight scene because the similar things are what make them good. Is a kind of conflict, and as I said before, the fight scene is a story, but then so is a space battle to an extent. And if you look at, you do have to treat these conflicts like their own, I don't know, smaller story. And I think a good example of treating something like a story is when you look at the original trilogy space battles. So they have a beginning, middle, and end. You see the progression, you see the individual fighters, and you recognize them. You can put the pieces together, and it then all lays out to you at the end, and you know what happened. But then when it comes to something, because the reason why I'm using space battles as an example, because it's just the best thing I can come up to in my head, because it does it so poorly. When it's like the Rise of Skywalker space battle, it's such a mess. It doesn't actually treat itself like a story. It's just random flashy nonsense. There's nothing you can follow. It's just visual noise. You're jumping between this element and that element and that element and that element. There's no beginning, middle, and end. It's just jumping around everywhere. You can't recognize anything. There's nothing to follow. That you can't say, okay, this ship's doing that, then it's doing that, then it's doing that. It's just, oh, here's a ship that blows something up. Here's a different ship. Here's another one. Here's another one. You can't piece anything together.
I do recall a fan creation of the fight scene between Vader and Obi-Wan in Episode 4, where Obi-Wan was doing ridiculous flips and fast maneuvers, which looked amazing, very technically impressive. But I felt, as great as that looked, and everyone knows the scenario of Obi-Wan and fighting Vader very, very slowly as they spin around a bit and clash lightsabers, and then Obi-Wan gives up. And, very simple scenario. But I like that better just because it made more sense. Because Obi-Wan's an old guy, and he's trying to save everyone, and this is the best way he could think of how to do so. And it just felt like a proper sacrifice, as opposed to him literally wailing away at Vader, and they're doing backflips and jumping around the corridor. And it's like, that's awesome. I'm saying it's a really great, cool choreography, but it didn't fit the character, at least to me.
I completely agree. The focus of the original fight was the dialogue between the two characters, because we get to have more insight of what is their relationship between each other, instead of clunky choreography that was happening. Because I don't think that both of those actors were even trained in sword fights. So.
Well, personally, the clunky choreography kind of distracted me. Just very personally, it just distracts me a little bit.
Yeah.
But also, one very personal gripe I have is very often in films when there's a sword fight, they only use swords. And I'm like, yeah, okay. In a real fight, you will use your sword, but you can also still use your fists and legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever they're in a bind, they just kind of stand around there. They could, I don't know, grab their sword, they could kick them, they could do anything. It's like, no, they just stand there.
Like what the European martial arts club I'm getting into, but is currently closed, sometimes has competitions, and you can make points in their competitions by getting hits. And how you get those hits doesn't really matter. You can kick, you can punch, you can use your sword. Doesn't matter as long as you get a fucking hit.
That sounds very good.
It depends where you get the hit. That gives if you get one in the head, that gives you more points.
Right, very similar to kendo. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
but that one is actually just with real swords, and sometimes we even train in armor, which is really cool.
Wow.
One of my favorite fight choreographies was in Harakiri. It's a really old Japanese movie, and basically the fight scene is at the very end of the movie, and it begins that the protagonist only has like a small knife for himself to defend, and he has to like fight with people with katanas and spears, and he has to fight his way to not only just defend himself but like grab new weapons on the way, and it's really done spectacularly.
I have to check that out.
All right.
What's the name again, you said?
Harakiri.
1960
something, I can't remember. Very old.
1962.
Oh wow, jeez, it's old.
It's really good even for its age. Like I didn't even feel that 2 hours.
I've seen lots of old films, so that won't be a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many great samurai films that have they just got the idea just right, even if they're so old and black and white, and the cinematography is just so basic. It's like, yep, that's a fight scene. That makes sense. Anyway, we can keep rambling on about what we like about fight scenes, but we're going to express them even more as we go through the video. So let's get started. Joe Crazy. They also had to change wrestling a lot because brain damage was beginning to be more of a focus, especially with what happened with Chris Benoit. I did not know that. That makes a lot of sense because those injuries were real. Like you were getting blood and lots of bruises throughout your body in a steel cage match and slamming your fist against pieces of aluminum or whatever the tables were made of out there, and the chairs and all this other crap. So yeah, no, it was pretty bloody, and it wasn't for everyone. So it's an art form to get hit and fall down properly. So anyway.
I love fight scenes. There's quite simply nothing like watching two fictional characters beat the living shit out of each other. They're explosive, they're surprising, and they're nearly always entertaining. And even though I myself am about as violent as a tortoise wearing a little cotton hat, I don't think I'm ever more pumped watching a show than watching two rivals square off against one another, moments before exploding into each other in a flurry of fists and feet. But that said, at what point does a fight scene start to become more than just two people hitting each other until one falls down? How exactly does one manage to carry the weight and consequence of the very best pugilistic showdowns? Well friends, we are back and we are more powerful than ever. So let's charge our key, scream till our hair changes colour, and let's discuss what makes a fight scene interesting. I think first we should take a little time and differentiate between fight scenes and action scenes. Fight scenes generally take place between two pre-established characters. Both tend to have a clear and defined motive for being there, and both usually have clear consequences for if they win or if they lose. Action scenes, on the other hand, tend to take place between a large group of people, usually with our protagonist facing down a large, undefined crowd.
Wait. The third action scene also include way more different things than just that.
Yeah, I would say
personally,
action scenes include fight scenes, but it's a much broader definition. I would say.
Also, personally, I would include what he's showing right now. I would also include it in fight scene because there are people fighting. They're using martial arts and.
You mean action scene included? Sorry, you said fight scene and action scene as if.
Well, I agreed with your point before, but personally, I would disagree with this classification of action scene there because to me, this is still a fight scene, like what he's showing right now.
The action scene, I think, is a parent category, and fighting is just a flavor of that category. So
yeah, much broader.
To me, his definition of fight scene being just two people fighting against each other is a bit too narrow. I would include also several people, more than just two fighting with each other.
And that's largely dependent on the genre of the film you're watching. This is why I always talk about conflict, saying if you have, let's say, a Marvel film that does multiple genres together, so you'll have the end of the world that will involve apocalyptic events, you'll have action, and that involves superhero action, you'll have gunplay, you'll have melee combat, you'll have romantic stuff, you'll have some comedic elements. So it has all these things, and it depends on how often those things come into conflict. So that's why you say,
just quickly, wouldn't it that his definition of just two people be more suiting of like something like a duel?
Yeah,
well, a duel would be two people.
Sure.
Personally, I would classify a fight scene as an action scene that mostly revolves around fighting.
Which could
so
be
an action scene where fighting is at the focus,
which could
at
be
the center.
Yeah, like a war scene of a bunch of guys in tanks would be a fight scene, but not martial art combat. It would still be fighting. So you really have to, start categorizing your terms properly. But he's just taking a very broad term and then getting a very specific term. So it's very.
I understand his terms. I just personally disagree with them a little bit.
Yes, I get it. All right, Alex Halo. Fate Zero's first Saber versus Lancer was done very well. Even Lancer hiding his second lance in ground to trick Saber into thinking he only had one. There's all kinds of wonderful tactics that people do in fighting to make a dramatic story told through the fight. And especially when you have Fate Zero where they got the budget to do proper looking, great looking animation. So that's why everyone says Fate Zero is probably the hallmark of the Fate franchise. So yeah, no, it's a wonderful fight scenes in that anime for sure.
Also smart, I just saw that LitDev said he'd like to join.
Sure. Why not? There we go. See if Voice is going to pop in too.
He said he's there soon enough.
Yeah. In his time zone, maybe. Not my time zone. Anyway, let's get going.
Of faceless enemies. I'm reluctant to refer to these kinds of scenes specifically as fight scenes.
Hey, LitDev, how's it going?
Pretty. Been Weebs today?
We're going through lots of anime, so not quite, but we are looking at Weeb stuff. Because Shiny's here. He's not a Weeb, so he can't.
Look, I was going to say, if it was Weeb Day, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
It was not named Weeb Day, but it actually is Weeb Day.
I'm not a Weeb, but I would be there.
Doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same thing. Anyway, let's keep going.
Because the enemy characters present tend not to have any real plot significance or weight in the story. They are bowling pins to be set up and knocked down by our hero.
But
he's defining a fight scene as between people, actual characters, and an actual an action scene being against what he could call bowling pins. Like,
but
characters just.
So what has he said so far about this stuff? About what makes a good action scene or a good fight scene?
He hasn't gotten that far yet. He's sort of just described or defined the categories between action and fight. So the action scene is just a bunch of NPCs that are like red shirts that get knocked down. As
the ninja thing, we fight a bunch of ninjas and stuff like that.
Right, kind of like a war, and there's just random mooks over there. You don't know who they are, and they get blown away. That sort of thing.
I wanted to ask a question though, because I know certain stories where a certain trial, like fight against 100 opponents, is very, very plot relevant. So would that? Because
he's still defining them as they need to be characters themselves, not red shirts.
All right, it's just the way he phrased it seemed like it has to be plot relevant. I'm like, yeah, but
I still think it's a very weak definition. Because again, what I would say is, if I'd put between two people as a duel, and then above that, I suppose you can say a fight scene is between actual characters. But then I would say a fight scene is just a subcategory of action scenes.
Yeah, certainly, I would agree with that.
So what he's doing is he's ascribing value to an actual conflict between people and saying, well, this person is not plot relevant, therefore it's not a fight scene, which is fine, but it doesn't change the fact that there's more than one person or people fighting each other. So it's very nitpicky, and his zeroing in on the definition is not very accurate, unfortunately. All right, here is Way of the Ferret. Thank you for the donation. Shiny, I'm playing a Cockney character in an upcoming TT RPG, and I want to sound as authentic as possible. As a certified British man, any tips?
For one, you're talking to a guy from Yorkshire who's a northerner. I don't know if you know about British geography, but London is very south. I suppose it generally depends on what kind of Cockney you're looking for, because there's lots of different subcategories of Cockney. Also, yeah. If you're going for more of a parody sense, then I guess my advice would be to look up the Mighty Boosh. How's it? The Mighty Boosh Cockney. What are the characters called? He's a really Cockney character. Hitcher? Is that it?
Is it the people who all come from Cork?
The
city of Cork.
You cut out there. What did you say?
People who are originating from the city of Cork. I heard a lot of jokes about that, so I'm assuming they're
Cockneys from anyone from London.
Oh, okay. I don't know the geography. I'm just saying what I remember from jokes.
What?
I'm sure it's a lovely town.
Look at the Mighty Boosh. There's a character who's got like a really over-the-top Cockney accent, if that's what you're looking for. You'd have to give me a little bit more information on what the hell you're on about.
I always refer to Planescape Torment if you want to get those really goofy, exaggerated accents from what's her face? The Tiefling. What's her name? Oh God, why is my brain blanking out right now? Anyway, lots of great accents you can make fun with. So don't be racist. Just have fun, okay?
Don't be racist. There you go. Message at the Smudcast.
Which I'm really trying to say is be as racist as humanly possible.
Heroes. None of this is to say that these kind of scenes aren't fun. I myself am particularly fond of them, especially in the old Jackie Chan movies. But the mechanics of what makes...
We've heard this guy before, haven't we? He sounds incredibly familiar. What's another video we watched about this guy? Does anyone actually remember?
Super Eyepatch Wolf.
Yeah, I could have sworn we've heard, either that or he's doing a very generic candor, because I've heard this exact tone of voice before.
He's probably generic. His videos don't seem that familiar to me.
Think.
He does a lot of anime videos.
He's a popular YouTuber. He's got at least 1 million subs. So
yeah. So I think we might have actually watched one of his videos before, because I remember his voice sounds very familiar, and the way he's speaking sounds very familiar.
Oh, he's probably just very.
There's a
video, generic.
Yeah, there's a video of him, or someone did of him, the pretentious sophistry of Super Eyepatch Wolf, and his bad take on Shenmue 3. Okay, so obviously someone loves Shenmue and wanted to bash Super Eyepatch Wolf. Yeah, he does have that voice that is like, okay, yeah, he knows what he's doing. He's getting the subs, getting the views. Anyway.
Hello.
Oh, the voice. How you doing?
Hello.
Good day. Or good evening.
Well, it's almost good night. Well, it basically is good night over here.
No.
That too.
All right. Well, get into the watch together, and we'll get started.
Yep.
All right. Let's do it.
An action scene interesting and what makes a fight scene interesting are entirely different. Action scenes are all about spectacle and bombast. They're about trying to fit as much excitement into a scene as you possibly can, and their success relies...
I don't think so. I don't think so
I
whatsoever.
agree with that.
The fight scene between Vader and ObiWan wasn't bombastic at all.
No, that's more emotionally driven, or more character driven.
But he's meaning action scenes, so... Sorry.
Oh,
you mean the
did
action scenes?
Did he say
there
action?
are a lot of people involved, and even then I would disagree. It's about. It depends on what you want to do with your film.
Yeah.
Depends on what you want to achieve with this specific scene. Now, you might want to say, like, in a film like Transformers, it might be about as much spectacle as possible, but now in a Jackie Chan film, it might be about as much cool moves Jackie Chan can pull off in this scene. It all depends. Well, I find that just very, very, a bit too simplistic of a classification.
I think
again, he's got that weird classification of what he calls an action scene and a fight scene. Anyway,
I think we asked a stunt actor.
A fight scene is a scene between characters, or like you said, two characters, or specifically.
Two plot relevant
characters. Action scene is something which isn't. It's like a guy fighting red shirts. That's what it is.
I think we asked a stuntman what makes something effective, and he wouldn't say, well, the stunt has to look believable, but he doesn't question the nature of the stunt. He's like, okay, the director wants him to launch himself 30 feet in the air and come down and land properly. He's like, all right, fine, I can do it. I know how to land safely and have rigging and whatever. So why it has value, I don't think is going to be asked by someone who knows the technique. But you have to understand what the scene's about. What is the character trying to do? What are they fighting for? What's at stake if they don't get it? And why are they trying so hard? So when you see them do all these crazy flips and running around railings and falling down, it's like they are pushing themselves as quickly as possible in a certain scenario to accomplish something. And that is what matters. That's why some of those fight scenes with Jackie Chan are kind of weird. Because Jackie Chan's like, all right, I got a chair. How awesome can I... What could I do with this chair that's never been seen before? But it doesn't work well with the character of whatever he is in his stories, because is this guy like a circus performer? Does he juggle things? Is he really good with upholstery that he could like tear stuff off walls and put them back up, or reassemble chairs and tables? So it has to make sense with the character, and that's the problem with only Jackie Chan.
Well, I don't know if that's true. If you're in a fight scene, you're going to grab whatever's going to be most useful to you, and if a chair's the only thing you've got, you'd use it.
Right, but you're not suddenly an acrobat plus juggler plus melee weapons expert. You're not all those things at once. So I want to know how the Jackie character...
That's the thing, though. Jackie Chan is.
Oh, yeah, no, I get Jackie Chan, but not the character he plays in the story.
Let's say it like that. A chair is more often than not a hindrance to you fighting, because it's a bit clunky to wield. It's a bit heavy. So very often, in a real fight, you'd be better off without a chair if you know how to fight.
So unless you're going to throw it at someone, that the throwing.
Well, true enough. As a distraction, it works wonderfully.
Here, have a chair. Smash.
That's usually that's what they teach you in self-defense. Just distract them. Throw something in their face. No matter what it is, it will distract them. So just use anything.
Yeah.
Use a rubber dildo.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. But also, I just find it weird that he says that action scene is about as much spectacle as possible. I'm like, not necessarily. It might also be about the quality of the spectacle. Or just...
I mean, you could... Wolf... Not a fucking... I'll try to remember what it is now. Star Trek. Siege of AR something in Deep Space Nine. Where they are fighting... Well, to his definition, again, he would call it an action scene. It's the characters which we have already met and we know from the show fighting against waves of Jem'Hadar, which are, again, the red shirts. So... that is still emotionally driven. That's not about the spectacle. That's about an episode about the horrors of war, really. As you slowly see these characters get picked off, and with a big climactic battle.
Also,
and even Clark has to pick up a phaser and kill a Jem'Hadar because it's either him or him.
I also just realized if you have, like, for example, an action scene in a comedy film, they also often try to be very funny skits. So it's not about spectacle at all. It's about being funny. Johnny
English, for instance.
Yeah.
It's more about, I don't know, oh look, isn't it funny that in the fight scene, he's throwing something at him, and then he just casually walked to the side. I mean, I can't think of an
it's
example.
also still exciting. It's still an action scene, but it's more about making you laugh than being spectacle.
I would still say that action scenes can be anything which is more just fast pace. I don't know. So like a chase scene could be an action scene, whereas a fight scene you could still classify. I don't know, actually fighting someone. A car chase could be described as an action scene.
Yeah. Then again, I keep getting confused by his definition of action scene being just a person fighting, or multiple people fighting.
Yeah.
We keep swapping between our definition of action scene and his.
Yeah.
So it makes it more confusing.
Because I find his so strange that I can't keep to it. I don't know.
This is the problem we have with people who are doing their own video, or very good at video editing. They're not so much good in the theoretical of the thing they're talking about. So they'll get lots of hits based off their video editing and their timing and music and all this stuff, and their argument is just sort of mediocre. I don't mind the argument aside from his definitions, but he's doing fine. That's why I like this video so far.
Nearly entire on direction, choreography, shot layout, and a tight edit. And while these factors are absolutely important for a good fight scene, this alone is not really enough to make a fight scene truly compelling. Case in point, Yatta vs Fushimi from 2012's K Project. Despite how well choreographed and animated the scene is, if you've watched it in full, you know it's kind of a flash in the pan sort of experience. It looks great, but shit out of each other. They're explosive, they're surprising, and they're nearly
I'm so sorry, I clicked the wrong way. I was trying to pause.
But it never really evolves more.
Sorry?
What I want to say, to me, personally, it doesn't look that good. I don't know. Something about it feels just a bit off. It feels off to me. Okay.
The choreography with the swords feels very floaty, almost like they're semi-underwater.
Yeah.
A lot of
it's not Star Wars Rebels where fucking lightsabers go through people's hands.
Well, a lot of the designs. A lot of the designs of anime, like gigantic swords, which should weigh about 40 pounds, weigh nothing, or really big shoes or what have you. Like everything's just sort of wacky and plasticky. They feel like toys.
Some animes get it really right, like impact of hits. Personally, I think One Punch Man really does a good job of animation so that you really think, that hit impacted.
Well, that's over the top, yeah.
Yeah, I know, but it really feels like an impact, and here it just feels a bit floaty of like, let's just dance together.
I have a sword with glowy blue shit. Like, what does that do? Like, what is it?
Yeah, it's the visuals are blocking like what is happening on the screen. I just can't pinpoint down like even the crap.
This is the same argument I make with every video. Brandon Sanderson's second rule of magic: you have to know the limitations of what magic does or what this blue stuff does. If you hit someone with it, like just touch them with like a lightsaber, we know you're gone. You get hit by a lightsaber, whatever it touches is going to disintegrate or melt or whatever. It doesn't matter; it's gone.
It's Beskar.
Yeah,
but I will commend them for creativity because one of the two guys is using a skateboard to fight.
Oh, that's true.
It's Jackie Chan's chair.
There you go. If the chair had wheels.
Much past being two beautiful dudes wailing on each other. There's a surface level appeal here for sure, but aside from the sheer giftable potential of the sequence, it's nearly like the show pauses, presents us with an action scene, and then resumes its story once the scene is finished. And
That's
ultimately, despite the high production values, the fight feels...
I don't know, this animation looks kind of bad to me. It all looks kind of off in terms of animation.
Looks like in terms of motion, I did see when he was using his skateboard, he did a run up, and then he basically was standing on his skateboard, pushing it against the guy, and he just had the sword stopping him, and then he was just holding, like he was just floating there in the air. That was weird to me, like it was for a prolonged period of time, but I suppose that's just anime.
I think to me it feels like they tried too much to bring speed and motion into it, so they zoomed into stuff and had weird proportions and everything. It looks very strange to me.
The reason why it sticks out to me is because you'd have a lot of momentum with the skateboard, and then all of a sudden it just stops and you just freeze in the air when.
Not to mention it's a full human body.
Yeah, behind that motion.
That's like £80, £90 at most.
And that's one hand with a sword is deflecting all that.
Just fucking have the Ahsoka versus Darth Maul fight here. Fucking hell.
You know, in terms of fight scenes, which have no, good characters, no good story, I think Ruby is probably a good example to go to because the story's non-existent and the characters are bare bones, or like probably less than bare bones. Dad barely called them characters, and pretty much the only thing the show has going for it is the fight choreography, and that's about it. And people eat it up, or at least they used to eat it up until they lost good fight choreography, and then people stopped eating it up because they had no story to rely on.
Personally, I really like fight choreography that's quick. Fights that don't take forever, and a lot of animes love fights taking forever.
Compare that to
you like the quick samurai fight 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about
that might be my background. That's making me like that.
I remember the live action analysis of the Battle of Blaviken in The Witcher, and we know what's going on. We understand why the Witcher's doing what he's doing. We understand why the people are doing what they're doing. Why what's her face, the princess of whatever, is doing what she's doing. We all get it, and there's all these weird little cool scenes and glitches and weird things I don't understand because it looks cool. And you could not possibly decapitate someone who's standing in a doorway. It doesn't make any sense. Stuff like that. So
you're talking about the actual TV show.
The live action, yeah. So there's stuff in there which is like, okay, he's half swording and holding the blade and doing all these things. And it's like, okay, that is, he's a mutant, so he must be very strong and very delicate. So he just to hold the blade a certain way.
It's the reverse grip that bothers me in that.
Yes, that's a big thing.
I haven't seen
the sword sounds cool.
Fun fact, most European swords were actually rather blunt. You can still cut with a blunt blade if you know how to do it. Sure. And so half swording, so actually holding your blade is a rather common thing.
There's a lot of fast actions in there.
He holds it in reverse grip.
I'm just saying because Smart mentioned half swording or what?
But he stops crossbow bolts. Okay, he's really good reaction speed, really fast, superhuman. It's okay.
At that point, you shoot the crossbow bolt, he deflects it. You just go, nah, right?
Yeah,
no,
you're done.
I'm not fighting this guy.
Run away.
Well, there are also stuff like Morty where you hold the sword completely on the blade and just use the what is it called again? The what you use to stop a sword from hitting your hand.
The hilt. The hilt. Crossguard.
Guard.
Yeah, crossguard. Thank you. Crossguard to hit in the nicks of an armor. So there's stuff like that as well.
Right. I've seen that in medieval fighting as well, with people in armor, because the swords aren't very useful against plate armor, so they hold it like a club. Yeah.
Or you use the hilt to actually fucking bash in someone's head, because the hilt is much more massive and is better against the helmet than your sword.
Depending on the shape of the pommel, that could work too. Yeah, there's all wonderful techniques in medieval weaponry that great YouTubers do, which we're not going to.
And if you're armored, you use your fist, because your fist hits just as well.
Just smack them around,
yeah.
So I would argue that this scene doesn't work because we don't know what's going on in terms of the superpowers these people have, the weight of things, like a 90-pound fellow jumping with a skateboard into someone doesn't make sense. Blocking it with a katana or whatever, it's like that's not, unless we understand the magic. How strong and dense this metal is. There's things that have to have some realistic nature, and then the fantastical elements have to also be on top of that. So it's a very delicate balancing act of reality, physics, and then magic or fantasy.
Feels forgettable because of it. So if large-scale action, decent choreography, and great animation aren't enough to really sell a fight scene, then what will? Well,
see, right, that scene, that guy was trying to punch him, and while he's just holding his sword to the ground, he's not even using it. It's just silly. It's like, do you want to hit this guy? Do you want to kill this guy? What do you want to do?
Also, the animation for me just looks so off. It
feels
almost
forgettable because of it. Yeah. So if large-scale action, decent choreography, and great...
Like, he's just standing there. Blocking... Maybe...
I mean, like... This is basically the perfect screen to show that he could just cut open his back.
Right. So this is why I don't care about choreography as much as characterization. If we can understand a character's motivation and who and what they are, you don't have to worry about good or bad choreography. Yes, if you're doing live action, you have to explain to the guy, I want this hero character to struggle. He doesn't know how to fight. He's not skilled with fencing or whatever. Okay, give me that character and give me a choreography. Then that is fine. The conflict is what matters to me. Why are they doing it? What's going on in their heads? What are they striving for? It doesn't matter if it's a physical confrontation, a violent one. They're playing a chess match. I don't care. Give me a reason why they're doing what they're doing, and the rest writes itself. And it goes for any, and I mean any category of storytelling. It doesn't matter if it's a murder mystery or action or romance. Conflict is what matters and why they're doing what they're doing. And that's why I always say plot. But anyway, I want to know more about
the fight scene in Mission Impossible Fallout. Just thought I'd throw that out there while we were talking about fight scenes.
Is that one of your favorites?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. In recent memory, anyway.
Okay. There's lots of films we have to watch and appreciate. We haven't got around to, so yeah.
But personally, like if the characters and everything are there to have a reason to fight, that's really cool. It's just if the choreography is off, it will take me out of the fight scene, not out of the film specifically, or out of the entirety of the story, but out of the fight
When you have a guy with a lethal weapon and he doesn't use it, like that, we talked about Batman previously. There's those 6 guys with rifles not firing, and you're like, what the hell?
They're aiming at the guy, and they just don't pull
the trigger. Batman's
just
right there.
Hold it there for a little while.
Or when they constantly only shoot the armor that is bulletproof.
Right.
Basically what you need to do in a fight scene is it's I guess you could say it takes skill, but it's not a lot of components you need to juggle. Basically, in the story, a fight scene just needs to carry the story along, first of all, and have a purpose behind it. So you can't just have like 2 guys fighting for no reason. Which is why I don't like the whole trope of introducing allied characters fighting, like in a practice duel or something like that. Like these 2 friends are just fighting each other. That's how they're introduced. And especially if they kind of trick you into thinking that this is an actual battle that they're fighting with stakes and everything. Because if their friends is fighting in a practice battle,
High Republic.
High Republic. Usually, like maybe 8, 9 times out of 10, if there's 2 friends fighting, it's not for really any reason. Now, this is contrary to after you've built something up. So you have like maybe a tournament or something, and then at the end of the tournament, it's 2 friends who managed to make it to the semifinals, and then they fight. And then at the end, the person who gets the victor gets the reward that's associated with that victory. Then you have an interesting fight. But if it's just with like 2 friends fighting just to introduce them with no definitive stakes attached to it, that's boring. It's absolutely boring. There's no reason why you should do that. There's so many other ways so many better ways you can introduce 2 characters together. So a fight must have some sort of narrative stakes to it, and it also must carry the story along. So as opposed to just you have a fight is just for a fight's sake. Like I know Shadiversity really broke it down and said it was a really well constructed fight, but the fight in Revenge of the Sith, it kind of loses steam after a while. It kind of loses a lot of steam after a while, and you know why they're fighting. They just have to beat each other, and that's it. But the whole fight doesn't move the story along. What I mean is, like, the whole fight from beginning to end only has one thing that happens. Anakin gets defeated by ObiWan. Now, what they could have done is have consequences for the battle in the meantime. Like, for example, the famous battle between Goku and Frieza. Like, their battle is so immense and so long that it starts destroying the planet, and it actually changes the landscape of the battle. So in the beginning, Goku fought Frieza, and if he won, they could just all go home. But during that fight, the planet becomes is on like a spiral for destruction. which means suddenly they have to leave. Suddenly they have to get out of there. So things change according to across the battle.
So you're trying to talk about the narrative of the battle itself, rather than just because Shadowversity was taking it from a choreography side, where you're trying to talk about more of the actual story of the.
Yeah. So a fight needs to carry the story along. I think I would put it in the same category as like songs in musical or something. Like there's sections, there's things that you would expect in the genre. However, they can't just be there for the purpose of just being there. For example, in Frozen, the movie Frozen, I heard everyone loved it, and I watched it like, oh, this is gonna be great. It's awful. It's just terrible. They have like these weird songs that come in out of nowhere that just exist just to be songs in there and carry no narrative weight to them. They have no change. If you look at the Disney movies before that happens, each and every song has a purpose behind it, and either conveys a character's heart and mind and their desires, or actually moves the story along. And you can get an example of that too. The Beauty and the Beast song, when they're like I guess they just met each other and like they're in the castle together and trying to get the beast to fix himself up, and they start beating each other. So the song is like a montage that gets them from being acquaintances that barely tolerate each other to people that might be in love. You might believe that they are in love. So songs, fight scenes, things like that, those are things that, yeah, they're cool, but you can't forget the fundamentals of writing that build them up. And what that is, they have to move the story along. They have to have narrative stakes to them.
I was about to bring up the live action Beauty and the Beast, but he did it for me. Thank you.
I think it's just a lot of different parts that need to work together. Because also, for example, if you have like a song, but that's super story relevant, but the song is absolute shit, it's gonna take you out of the film. So it needs to be
like terrible fight choreography.
It needs to have a good tune, needs to have a good singer, but it also needs to be plot relevant and further the character. Similar to fighting, there are all these different things that need to work together to make it good.
That is the nature of genre. When you have a romance, you actually have to have two people struggling to find each other and love each other. It can't just be, I love you, let's get married, the end. There has to be reasons why they can't, and constant reasons why they can't come together, and they want to come together. And there's all this motivation, and all this anticipation, all this tension, all this desire.
Message coming in.
It doesn't matter if it's combat, physical, mental, whatever. I don't care. Make the characters clear, make their conflict real, make their motivation understood. So, anyway, let's keep going. Alex Halo, an Index anime did it well. Oh, you love Index, sir. A girl was shooting a bulletproof helicopter, okay, near where the vent for the engine was, and the piece got in the engine. Yeah, I don't like silly things like that. Very similar to the, I don't know, I'll give an example of the death of Julia in Cowboy Bebop. People say that's like a stray, random guy they forgot that just popped up out of nowhere and shoots her, but you knew something tragic was going to happen. It wasn't the best form, but it still made sense within the fact that there's a bunch of people coming after these two people who are part of the mob. Naturally, you're going to have lots and lots of mooks running around, and you can't account for them all. So I still don't like how she died, but then they made it all very visually, doves flying in the background and slow motion camera. Okay. But it's believable in the context that the mob would come after the two. Kyle Rocket, thank you, sir. Actually, LitDev, the fight between Goku and Frieza only got bad to where they had to leave was when Frieza went all crybaby and threw a death ball at the core of Namek. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, that's part of the fight. They're in the middle of a fight. Like it's after they thought that. Well, I think that was after that he survived the spirit bomb or something. I think, and then he just used a death ball to make it. 5 minutes remaining, and they had like 20 episodes left in the fight. Yes. So, but yeah, the narrative kind of shifts along this. It's still the fight. It's still the fight between Goku and Frieza, but the narrative shifts as it moves along.
See,
and things change around them.
That makes sense.
The stakes shift. The circumstances change
because once you know a character and you're going to write them to be the villain, they're going to have some vices which don't make them as honorable as, I don't know, the heroes are. So they will resort to things like, oh yeah, I'm going to blow up this planet now because I can't win or whatever. So that is what I'm thinking of when I think of conflict. I don't think of just, oh, is this fight scene look good? It's like, Does the fight make sense to each character involved? Are they acting exactly the way they should be based off how we know them? And if they start doing crazy shit like, wall walking and teleportation, you're like, okay, where did this come from? How did this element get in there? That's when you have problems.
Animation aren't to really sell a fight scene, then what will? Well, I think the best way to think about it is that all a fight scene really is a dialogue between two characters. It's a conversation with...
Okay, I don't like that analogy. I don't think it's a wrong analogy. I just think it's a very inaccurate one.
I think the analogy I made earlier of it being almost a story with a beginning, middle, and end is probably a lot more accurate than saying it's a dialogue.
Yeah, because look at the thing on the screen.
I would agree with that.
This is a scene in Cowboy Bebop knocking on Heaven's Door. There's Elektra there, and there's Spike. Spike likes Elektra. He doesn't want to hurt her, but he also doesn't want to lose the fight because he has to get the hell out of there. So he's trying to humor her because she's serious about doing her job. At the same time, he's like trying to flirt with her at the same. So his character is, I'm Spike Spiegel. I'm a cool dude. I'm attracted to you, but I'm also a cowboy, and I got to get the hell out of here. But I don't want you to, make like I'm going to hurt you and knock you unconscious. So I'm going to play around with you. I'm going to throw a broom at you. I'm going to jump around and dodge bullets and all this crazy crap. That's his character, and he knows what's going on. He doesn't actually want to fight her. So that's what I mean. This could have gone on for like a minute, and he could beat the shit out of her, but that would not be what Spike as a character would do.
One thing I'd also personally like me to would be more of a dance.
Yes, it is a dance. Exactly. That is the best comparison I can think of too.
That's
because I don't think that gets at the construction, because I think it's not really saying anything to say that it is a dance. It's almost like saying, I don't know.
Actually, calling it a dance is actually a pretty good comparison because a lot of the Jet Li types, like the kung fu guys from the Chinese movies, they're actually enrolled in in like a dance studio or dance school before they start to fight. So they kind of they dance first as their foundation. They're dancers first, and then they start going to the choreography of martial arts in the movies.
That's actually one thing a lot of my sensei, especially in ninjutsu, told me, get a dancing club, learn how to move your body smoothly, and then come fighting, because then you know how to fight smoothly.
I remember...
but I think it's just kind of kicking the ball a bit further down the line, is then you then have to break it up anyway. It's like say, oh, well, it's a story, it's this, that, and the other, you need these elements.
Well, it just, for me, it's personally just, if it's just specifically look at the fight,
we're talking about fights in narrative, not fights as in... the actual choreography itself right now.
No, I certainly know what you mean.
I know when you're saying before that it helps to know how to move your body by learning things like dance in actual martial arts, but that's got more to do with the choreography is the actual movements than the narrative effect of the fight.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm just saying that to me that it's a bit better to say dance than that, but in the end there's still the story aspect to it.
I always refer to the story of Vasyl Lomachenko, who his father said, if you want to become a boxer, this is what you have to do. You're going to train to be a Ukrainian dancer for 5 or 6 years or whatever, however long it was, so that when he got to become a boxer, and Lomachenko is probably the most technically impressive boxer I've ever seen. So he already had the footwork and the balance and the understanding of movement before he started punching and operating on
it's rhythm.
It is a lot of things. Boxing is very
essentially what it is.
Very complicated.
You got to figure out your opponent's rhythm and know when they're open and take the opportunities when they're open to attack back. That's how fighting works. So
yeah, obviously
having good sense of rhythm and body control is important when you're fighting. So dancing is really helpful.
And obviously boxing is completely focused on punches. That's where they get all their power from. That's what they're very well versed in. So there's all these techniques of how to throw a certain punch. But even more important, I would say, is the footwork, positioning, orientation.
Yeah, so important. Also, I just saw, I think Glib wants to join as well.
Okay, Glib, yay. More people.
Obviously, I don't fight because I'm a radio, but I've been told.
You've been told things.
I use my words. I take my enemies down with sheer bitterness.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, I also agree with Shiny. There's a certain narrative component to a fight scene that's going beyond just a choreography.
I'm not sure who's in the chat right now. Who is that?
Hello.
It's Glib. Oh my god, Glib, what is that? I can't tell your avatar apart.
I think it's a commissar.
Oh, I forgot my avatar.
I can't tell.
You're the commandant today?
No. let me see if I can. Okay, that's better.
I mean, I know it's Glib. I just can't tell what the heck I'm looking at.
The commandant, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm William Shatner.
What?
It hasn't yet updated for me.
All right.
Anyway, I've been listening to this, and I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you guys on this. I like the idea of violence being an argument between people that is nonverbal. Like we've already, whenever there's a duel in a classic sword movie, it's always about explaining why they're fighting, which is what I think Smud was saying. So each of the characters' motivations and them fighting is more interesting than the fight itself, which is something that I understand as well, the conflicts and the consequences of it. But the fight itself is sort of a debate with fists, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I like that aspect of it.
It should shift. Like a good fight scene should shift. To bring back to like the Revenge of the Sith, where you have Anakin versus Obi-Wan. Yeah, they go through like several different instances. Like they go through several different layouts, like the room and this bridge and the lava and everything. But nothing is ever really actually used to full effect. Like they basically, for a narrative's sake, they never switch up fighting styles. They just continue fighting each other and banging those lightsabers together, and they never really switch anything. So what I mean by that is compare it to like the fight scene where Jackie Chan and Jet Li meet in the movie Forbidden Kingdom. That's also a really dumb fight scene at the stakes of it, because it's a really big misunderstanding. Like all they do is talk to each other at the end of the fight scene. It's like, oh, we're on the same side. Okay, well, let's keep going then. So it's basically ultimately meaningless. It's really stupid the way they handle it. But that is a much better fight scene. I think this on the choreography's sake, because it actually is filled with twists and turns, because they start fighting each other, and then they start getting more and more serious, and then Jackie Chan starts winning, and then they switch. Then Jet Li switches up his style, and then he starts winning, and they start switching up the circumstances over and over and over again, several times, and then it's interesting. So yeah, it is, as Glib said, it becomes like an argument where they change tactics, change topics, they switch back and forth, they have their blows, they have their exchanges, so you can have that where they start switching martial arts styles and different techniques in order to get the upper hand on the other guy, as opposed to two guys hitting glow sticks for 10 minutes or so, going through several different landscapes and not really changing up their tactics any.
Have you ever seen anybody in a fight in like one of those World Star videos where somebody is flourishing their lightsaber or anything like that? No, it's never like that. It's two people with whatever definition of victory trying to beat each other into submission. So it's usually the climax of a discussion that goes nowhere is a fight. And then for a fight to continue to stay interesting, there have to be stanzas, basically.
Exactly. Let me give you like an example what they could have done a little bit differently. Like maybe they gave it to the lava scene in Obi-Wan versus Anakin. And then instead of continuing to fight each other with glow sticks, they could have, like, Anakin could have used the Force to start lobbing waves of lava at Obi-Wan. The thing, they use the landscape around them. Or something like that, or they use like they start to destroy the little things they're floating on, or something like they use environment around them where the circumstances change based on what is happening now. So as opposed to them just switching up places to fight on. That's all you do in the Revenge of the Sith fight. As far as I remember, they changed venues. That's all they do. They just continue fighting the same exact way. They don't use anything to their full advantage.
Do you remember Sicario, where they're doing the convoy and they're on their way back from Mexico and they reach the border, and then there's a very short fight scene between the assassins that are run by the cartels trying to kill the high value target that the Americans are trying to get out of Mexico, basically. And the whole fight scene, the fight actually doesn't matter. It's over in almost 1 second. Like, I think less than that almost, because the gun battle is set up like a bunch of high-end operators killing a bunch of lesser foot soldiers of the cartel. So it's all about build-up. It's all about, where is this character coming from? Where is this character coming from? What angle? Who's aiming at who? Who's doing whatever? And then the conversation is just about what's about to happen. You have Benicio del Toro's...
I still think conversation isn't a good way to describe it, or a good analogy, because it is a conflict. Because let's say theoretically you do have, two people, it's this big story about a competition, and then the conflict would be about them trying to win the competition rather than it being an argument. I'm trying to think top of the head, maybe something like Karate Kid. It's not two people, it's two people with a conflict, not two people arguing.
But the resolution of the conflict isn't through conversation. It's through whoever kicks the guy in the face harder.
That's when we have a fight scene. However, what's the most memorable conflict resolution that we have in media? It's the lone gunman. It's the samurai. It's the tension buildup of two guys being at dawn and then shooting each other, and then one guy falls immediately. There's no fight. There's no shootout. Then you have the samurai. Yeah, then they get the samurai. It's a resolution of conflict. We're talking about fight scenes. Now, fight scenes are fight scenes, particularly not because they resolve a conflict alone, but because they involve two guys fighting it out with their techniques in like a sword fight or a gun battle or punch them up fight. You have exchanges here. It becomes an argument, like as Glib said, instead of a just cut and dry yes or no sort of scenario, like a gun battle or like a gun draw or the samurai showdown where you have that one draw slice and then one guy falls down.
It's definitely doing a disservice to debate and to fighting on each other's grounds. Like, a fight is a debate with skill, and then a debate is a fight with words. And so when you have those things on exhibition, they are in concert with each other.
I think for the sake of confusion, don't compare the two and call them separate things.
I think one thing that's happening is that there are several people of us that look at different aspects of a fight. Like, for example, I look at the choreography a lot because it's very important to me, so I compare it to dance. Now, Smud and Shiny look a lot about the story of the fight, the two characters, and then LitDev and Glib are looking a lot about the argument, the two individuals in it, trying to win each other over.
All of those things matter. You need all of those
all of those.
So you need good choreography, good cinematography, a reason for them to fight. The discussions that happen leading up to it have to inform why they're fighting. All of those things make it good. And I thought it was funny. I remember when Smud was using ObiWan and Vader as an example, and I was like, come on, Smud, you can't do that. That everybody criticizes that fight for being shitty.
I never meant to say that one is more important than the other. I just meant to point out that kind of all of these three groups are kind of almost talking past each other. So I just wanted to bring together. We're all talking about the same thing, just different aspects of it.
All of those
are important. Yeah, they're all important.
They
need to come together. They need to come together to make one whole.
They answer the question that is proposed by the title of the video, which is what makes a fight scene interesting. The characters' motivations, the conflict between the characters that are fighting, and the reasons why they're there. The climax that has to do with how the choreography and the cinematography come together in concert with the music, and then the unique qualities like what Smud said earlier about Jackie Chan, how you use the set dressing, how you use the setup, all of those things coming together. That's what makes a good fight scene.
I wholeheartedly agree.
I'm not going to have my 2 cents because we've been talking for so long, so let's just keep going.
Also, no weapons accuracy, no weapons that disappear mid-battle.
Unless that's part of the system.
Here is Dollface. Hey, Dollface. Wish we had you on, but as you can see, we're packed, so sorry about that. Do you think you can treat a fight as a story in and of itself? Yes, you can. Looking at it through the lens of the hero's journey or the 3-act structure, etc. Okay, yes. I don't see why not. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because we're talking about, as Crazy Philosopher said, a choreography of events based off physical or some sort of murderous conflict. So you could have death and rebirth. You could have, claiming the sword or the potion or the boon, a return to normalcy. Yeah, all these things could happen, but you're doing it completely visually with no dialogue. It's going to be hard for people to interpret. It's like interpreting modern dance, for example. But because it's following a pattern, then you can say, oh, this is the part where they go from a world of normalcy and they take the plunge into the other world. So yeah, you could definitely structure visually, dancing, combat, all these changes. You could do all these things that would be very interesting to watch, but because we don't know what's going on, it's just a visual display.
Imagine a montage, right? And the beginning scene is a teacher wearing a golden robe, and there's a student, and the student's wearing tattered white robes with the previous stains from the blood of previous wearers and that kind of thing. He's got a white belt. The gold master has a black belt, and they're fighting, and the gold master is just kicking ass. He's just destroying the guy. And then the next shot of the sequence is you see the master using some sort of symbolic game, like they're playing Go or they're playing chess, and you see him just like pointing at different positions. You see the next shot is him training the trainee by having him do different forms. Then the next shot is them doing like a test of physical strength, carrying water out of a river and up a hill or whatever. Then you go back to the first shot, and the first shot is the next time they're battling, the trainee does a little better, and then the next shot we see the exact same thing, but a little bit improvement and a little bit of improvement, and then he gets a new belt, and the belt is a blue belt, and then we do the same cycle over again the third time, but this time the trainee and the master are on equal footing when it comes to the battle, and he doesn't sweat anymore when he's lifting the water out of the river, and he beats the master at chess or Go or whatever, and then he earns his black belt. That could be a story with no dialogue, with only actions of one person beating the other person as an explanation for how the trainee, the main character, gets better at whatever they choose to do. It's a story. It's a sequence of events, obviously, and those events basically reflect how the character's disposition and how they are in relation to other characters changes. So now the student becomes the master. That's a story.
What Glib just described.
The loss of sanity and spiral into madness. That's a story. They don't have to be told with words. You could tell it with violence if you want to, but then it's a story about violence. If you get what I'm saying. That fight scene in a non-specific endeavor where it's just, let's say, like fighting, not just fighting, then it's in service to something greater. And the story is more important than the action. The action has to be in service to whatever story you're telling.
So Glib imagined an entire complete story beginning to end, and he then eliminated all the other stuff that is not relevant to the hero's journey. There's all kinds of time skips, all sorts of events that, if the guy's playing chess, he's learning this opening, he gets better, he loses, he wins. You could all tell that story in about a series of 10 seconds, and that would be a complete story without dialogue. That's right. I took the question as, can you have an actual continual motion of time from like 0 seconds to 10 seconds, 10 minutes, and do it in the pattern of whatever? And sure, of course you can. Mm-hmm. You could do whatever pattern you want and have, a certain dramatic rise and fall and this and that. So yeah, no, there's all sorts of wonderful techniques you could use visually to do, the video technique you're referring to, montages. Sure, of course. So the thing is, would you want to do it that way as a 10-minute experience of the hero's journey? I don't know. It would be very, very artistic. It would be very magical.
It would be by somebody that cares a lot about fighting and thinks about fighting over what other parts of the human condition are important.
Like
it's all about
a Disney, like a short Disney film, like the Magician's Apprentice. What is it called? Where Mickey is doing the broom thing. That's about 10, like 20 minute thing. Yeah, it's a simple thing, simple little quick little video. but it's all about this musical story of Mickey learning how to not be lazy.
Or the intro scenes to Up.
Yeah,
With
or
the entire
Wall-E.
story. Yeah.
Wall-E is all action. The thing is that in the non-fight,
Message coming
violent,
in.
whatever sense,
Patch
think about a film. They're made up of two different things: dialogue and action. And that's because action is a part of a script. When you write an action line, it's what the character does. When you write a dialogue line, it's what the character says. The other thing is that you have descriptions about what is happening. Not verbs, not actions, but the setting. So there's person, place, and thing information. Then there's a class of information that has to do with what those nouns do. And then there's a class of information that comes from their interactions that have to do with talking. And so when he, I think, to bring it back just to the video, when he says it's like a dialogue, it's because what an action scene has to do when dialogue is removed is take over a little bit for the scripting. You have to work harder with your tools and with the action to tell a story without dialogue than when you're able to tell it with dialogue, because dialogue is what allows a lot of drama to push forward. When people say things and make declarations, that's what people usually react to. It's when you have actions and dialogue to react to, you have much more to work with than just actions or a look or what,
Yeah, so you'd have to use I would make this a short story seminar, really, of try to tell a story without dialogue. And if you wanted to do a fight scene with a meaningful fight scene, you would have to use lots of symbolism, lots of elements like a study in Scarlet where Sherlock deduces there must be an heirloom involved in this murder, and he finds a ring. So, hey, a ring. Why would a ring be involved? Some man loved someone and married them. Why would a married man want to kill another man? Maybe they did something to his wife, and that's what ends up happening. So imagine a man who in a fight would want to kill another man. Why? They did something to his wife. You show him wearing a wedding ring. You show him have a ring around his neck. A story of revenge. You just can deduce that visually without describing all these information. So
right, you have imagery like you were saying right there, and then all the actions are going to have to be based on how the action is seeing the image of the man and his wife in a photograph, right? And turned down, and he picks up the image, and this must be the wife that I killed, and then his expression. So action and reaction. That's what film is when it comes to basic visual storytelling. Is look at the thing that the character is looking at. Now, what does the character do? What is the expression that they give? Okay, now what are they? So it's back and forth. Action. They notice something. They see it. Then we see their reaction. Then they do something else. Then from that we have the reaction of what happened from that, back and forth, basically.
Right. Anyway, this is great, but we got to keep going. Rin Wesley. Kill Bill is one of the best examples of how fight scenes characterizes the relationship between the people involved.
Yeah, sure. I'm kind of bored by Kill Bill.
Weird results. Not. Oh yeah, sure. I don't know.
It's very reminiscent of the Bruce Lee films and very simple plots of revenge. I don't mind it. It's very weak. It's very surface level stuff. You understand it. That's the good part, but it's not. There's not enough depth to it or depth. It's very influenced by the Hong Kong cinema. Anyway, we're talking a lot. Jeez, only 3 minutes in.
With question, answers, challenges, and responses. And the point where a fight scene truly becomes engaging is the point where the audience can follow the physical communication playing out on screen.
Okay, so he's referring to specific kinds of fights with martial artists, for example. Not every character is going to be an amazing ninja or an amazing kung fu guy who has like 15 different responses to one attack, and he'll just try number 2, then he'll try number 3. So I prefer to go back on the character reason. What's happening? Would a character react this way if they walked across a room and stubbed their toe? If they will, you know exactly how to write that character. It's the same thing with them getting punched or kicked or whatever. So when you see these really fast fight scenes, you then have to assume these guys have been training in martial arts for a very, very long time. They know a lot of things they can do. And that's where we go, wait a second, how do we know that? How are we told that? Are they part of some fighting school in most cases. Yeah, the Chinese Connection, all these other Bruce Lee movies. It's always about some kid who lost his sensei, or he's the next progenitor of some martial art to get revenge on the death of his loved ones. So you have to then have this sort of background. Okay, yeah, this is why he's so good. So I don't like these extremely well-detailed choreography like we saw with Revenge of the Sith. And it's like, this goes on and on. They're not really changing much. And I remember the conversation. We watched a video of those two CGI guys, and they brought in their friend, the stuntman, and he talked about the Last Jedi fight scene. And the first thing he said was, why aren't they using force powers? Like, what's the point? Like, they're just a random bunch of guys swinging sticks. They could have been swinging anything. But this is a Star Wars film. I want to see these people who are trained or know how to use the Force to use the Force. So there's stuff in the character that we know that they're not doing. And it's like, this is dumb. And we know these characters are very skilled and can do things, and they're not doing it. It's kind of like when Superman, we know, can do a million different things, and all he does is punch. You're like, why? Why don't you choose something different?
It was just like yesterday when the people just refused to use their guns against Batman.
Yeah. It's stupid.
Happens all the time. To justify someone using like hand-to-hand combat when they can use a gun, they have to make all sorts of silly little adjustments. Little movie magic there.
Even if they just fired the guns and missed, I don't care. At least they tried to shoot Batman, and Batman's just that good, or whatever excuse you want to get. It just looks silly. So, yeah.
Let's take a look at a classic example of this. The fight scene between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris from the 1972 classic Way of the Dragon. During the entirely wordless 9 minutes it takes this fight to play out,
fights.
it tells a very simple yet effective story. The fight starts off with the much larger and more imposing Chuck Norris dominating Bruce Lee with his more powerful attacks. And after taking a beating, Lee is forced to reconsider his strategy and instead focuses entirely on defense, spending nearly a solid minute dodging and weaving around the larger fighter's attacks. And slowly he begins to get a read on his opponent, recognizing Norris's techniques and patterns, until eventually he uses this knowledge to utterly shut down his opponent at every turn, until Norris, completely out of options, must accept defeat. So, if you look at this scene in terms of being a dialogue, all it really is Norris's character
walk
opening up
into
with a
getting
strong
a
argument,
headlock?
Lee initially failing to respond before collecting himself, forming his own counter-arguments, and
I don't actually like this argument, or the idea that this is a conversation, because you're trying to say that, okay, I'm a fighter, this punch is not working, I'm going to try a different punch. Not necessarily. We don't know the character of Chuck Norris. We don't know exactly what he knows or his fighting style. We don't know too much about Bruce Lee in this regard, as far as I recall.
All right, so let me add something. Imagine if there was a scene where the characters, before they fought, they had a debate about whatever they're fighting over, and like the points and the counterpoints were equally equivalent to some sort of move that happened in the subsequent fight. So if somebody makes like a jab at someone's personality, like you're just a dumbass, and then later he jabs the guy in the jaw, you know what I mean? And then when he makes a long and drawn out point that actually offends the other character, maybe that could be a combo and then a big punch, you know what I mean? Would that work? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
I understand the
idea
analogy.
that they have a back and forth with dialogue,
yes,
and then later they have the exact same back and forth where they get the best of each other through violence. But it's the opposite characters.
Oh no, I get the concept of a dialogue. The difference is fighting is not necessarily that thing, because you're assuming people can adapt to things just because. We don't know they are some amazing adapter at dialogue or conversation or argument, as well as now they're also very good at any martial art coming their way, whether it's a boxing match or Thai boxing or what have you. I'm
so saying like they're two different attributes for a person.
They're two different skill sets. Yeah, these are. It's like
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I would like to add is that, well, one thing that films often kind of seem to forget, at least to me, is that a fighting style of a person often tells a lot about the personality.
Yes.
And so films could incorporate that more, because in actual fighting you learn a lot about another person
and it's very chaotic. Fighting
in a strange way.
This fight scene is so well done, but this is not how it would ever turn out. It looks good, but a fight is chaos. It's a series of emotions going up and down really fast, and violence and pain and fear and everything going all at once. And to see something as structured as this is obviously unbelievable to people who know fighting, but it looks amazing. Yeah, this is not a real fight. Of course not.
No, I know that.
It's an exhibition, it's an exhibition.
In a real fight, Chuck Norris would get completely destroyed by Bruce Lee, but...
No, that's not that. Isn't there like a big height difference between these two gentlemen?
Yeah, Bruce Lee
there's also
aren't they in different weight classes?
That's one thing.
It all depends on speed, where you want to hit, and technique, knowledge, and also knowing your opponent. If you don't know your opponent at all, they could easily best you, even if they're worse than you, if they just do something you don't expect.
Glib, you knew.
I don't like these what ifs.
No, Glib, you knew. I don't know if you remember the stories of they had to slow down the film just for Bruce Lee. He was so fast they couldn't capture his speed on the film. And that was for TV, and that was for whatever film they shot in back in the 70s. So they had to... Yeah, but... He was so fast. So you can imagine the stuff he did on, was it Kato? Was it the Green Hornet? They had to tone everything down.
In terms of level of skill, it's not really comparable between these two.
I don't know about that.
You suspend your disbelief, but in an actual fight, I would not put money on Chuck Norris. I
know
it's completely removed from... No, it's completely removed from the actual film. I'm not saying, well, that's inaccurate. Chuck Norris would never stand toe-to-toe with Bruce Lee. I'm just saying in an actual fight, it's completely removed from the subject we're talking about. I was making a joke.
Yes.
I will agree with Glib.
But I generally, I think with this video, I think it's all just coming down to different definitions and semantics. Because the way he described it, before he started going into dialogue, it's like, okay, yeah, that he's breaking it down fine, but then just the words he's using and the descriptions he's using, I think we just agreed earlier that it's just inaccurate, and it's.
I think if he focused on martial art fight scenes, or specifically fisticuffs or punching and kicking, then it's great. But because it's so generic and it's a parent action scene is the parent category, and you just say, well, everything under is either an action scene or a fight scene. Within this context, it's like, whoa, you're just limiting the entire conversation to Bruce Lee or this or that or anime. So I don't think it's very effective just by looking at the technical aspects of fighting. And that's why I don't care about fighting. I care about the conflict, and I care about what the characters are trying to accomplish, what they have at stake, what their goal is. And in this is the goal. The fight is the goal in this particular scene. They go to the Coliseum just to fight. And then Bruce Lee's like, I'm going to kill you so you don't come after me. True. And then boom, Chuck is dead. And you're like, what was that about?
That's the movie itself isn't very good. It's just to see Chuck and Bruce Lee fight in a sequence. There's a lot of problems with Bruce Lee movies with that. But I like the idea of force and violence being its own form of a language, like a more primal language thing.
When people watch
you have one side making like I blew up your factory. That's a statement.
When
I understand how characters work like that.
I certainly agree with that. I've experienced it myself when actually having fights with someone during training where you actually freeform fighting. You definitely there's something you learn a lot about the different person and their personality. So there's that going on.
When you watch this as a kid, you were just like so hyped. This was so awesome. You wanted to go out and like start beating people up. It was so cool.
That's true. I think that's absolutely true.
I've lost interest in the video now, so I'm going to pop off.
All right, Shiny. Thank you. All righty. Let's keep going.
And Norris in failing to come up with a significant answer to that. It's a brutally simple exchange between two characters, but one conveyed to the audience with the utmost clarity. In other words, there is a simple physical story that runs through this fight. And this is the concept that separates a good fight scene from an average one, and is exactly what's missing from the Yatta versus Fushimi fight. And when you start to look at fight scenes like this, something kind of strange happens, and that is that you realize the physical actions of a fight scene, the actual punches, kicks, and whatnot, are actually way less important than the narrative beats of a fight.
He agrees with
There's
these,
even several series.
This is what I don't understand. He put all his focus on telling a story visually through fighting, and then no, it doesn't matter. You're like, what?
No, it's more important that the fight makes more sense than it's well choreographed.
Oh yeah, no, I get the fact that an argument is its own form of discourse outside of normal dialogue, and same with fighting. It's its own form of discourse, but it's not dialogue. It's something completely different. It's a different.
I agree. I agree with it categorically. Like it's a different form, but to me, it's like a different. It's like a lower form of. It's below dialogue because animals. You see the animals around you. They resolve conflicts without dialogue. They do it through behaviorism, right? Through actions. They do it through territorial things, whatever, and then violence. And human beings, we have discussions. We can work things out through logic. We can be persuasive and all these different things. But that's asking much more of somebody or a thing or an animal or whatever than just hitting something,
But I agree. It's a conversation, but I would fighting is a type of conversation or a way of communication, especially for animals. But I would not say that and us talking are the same thing.
No, they're not. Absolutely not. It's like on a spectrum. It's like the lower, more primitive, less intelligent, part of the spectrum of discourse between beings. If you get what I'm saying. But it's not dialogue.
Yeah, sorry. Also, specifically about fight scene, I would also say that the choreography still has to reach a certain level for you not to be distracted from the story.
I agree. It has to meet a certain minimal amount of realism or authenticity.
With great fight scenes where physical confrontation doesn't even come into it. And this is the reason series like Phoenix Wright, Kaiju Ultimate Survivor, and even Yu-Gi-Oh! Can feel just as nail-bitingly intense as any direct combat encounter. These are coined as...
But those aren't combat encounters.
Yeah, no, he's talking about totally different things, but the reaction that he got personally, his subjective experience of listening to, I don't know, whatever law court battle in Phoenix Wright is just as intense as a fight scene. I'm like, okay, I guess, but that's...
Yeah, they may very well be, but they're completely different things.
Well, it's trying to be excitement. You're trying to get excited over conflict that's resolved through action instead of dialogue. Or dialogue is an assistance of the action, or the action is the exclamation point of the dialogue.
But in Phoenix Wright, it is dialogue.
Right, I understand that. But when we're talking about what makes those things similar, how do we compare those? It's the way that they're shot. It's the way that they're scripted in terms of back and forth. So when he sees that, he's like, oh, it's like a conversation. It's this, he says something and then he says something, but they're using their fists. So I go, yeah, I get what you're saying. But that's also like, somebody trying to say I'm hungry by going, wah, like a baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I get it.
Non-battle series by one of the best non-battle series, Bakuman, but more on that particular subject in a future video. So, if I were to put a name on it, everything we've talked about up until now could be summed up as the technical narrative of a fight, i.e. the strategic back and forth as both fighters attempt to adjust to their opponent's strategy and counter accordingly.
That's the assumption that a fight scene does involve strategy and tactics. Again, we don't know that until you took the context of the character into question, and that's how they learn. That's the point of the if it is an anime about fighting, then I would imagine that would be very important. But we can't say that with every fight scene in every movie or every show. And this is where I start saying, wait a second, slow down here. You're making it too specific, and then you're branching that out to every other element or media, and I don't like that. I want to zero in on what you're talking about specifically and see if it's relatable, because we can look at the fight scene in The Princess Bride and compare that to that other thing with the skateboard and go, this is ridiculous. There's no comparison.
Strong and clearly defined technical narrative is what keeps a fight from being a mishmash of flaming bodies, or just a ho-hum exchange of large-scale special moves. It's what gives the audience a story to follow, and a strong technical narrative is more than enough to keep a combat encounter compelling and interesting.
But sometimes the large scale moves are compelling. Just, I don't know. I find that a bit strange saying that categorically that large scale moves aren't compelling.
It's the same argument he made before about tactics. Oh, he's going to do something different, and it's going to be bigger and whatever. It's like the same idea of someone changing their stance in a more practical fight or pulling out a gun or whatever. It's just like, he's doing something new. And that's what LitDev was talking about with that crazy lava fight. It just kept going on and on. And they just keep swinging their batons at each other. Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing changes. Just keep hitting each other. That's why it kind of gets boring after a while.
You have to find a way to raise the stakes because you have to be able to make each of the combatants deadly or a danger. You have to feel like even though the hero is going to win, they might lose. And so how do you do that? Well, you got to make them lose a little bit, and then I have to change my strategy or come up with something new. How am I going to win this battle?
Sometimes it's certain. The biggest tension about it can be about the one large scale move, like when Goku uses the Genki Dama against Buu, which is like this is the final move. Everyone knows it, and just like it takes him so much time, so you have to. It's nail biting about will he pull it off? Will he get everything? So it's about one large-scale move ending everything.
I remember.
So I find it a bit strange for him saying it categorically that the large-scale moves are kind of uninteresting.
No. He's alone by themselves without build-up. Okay. Those moves don't really work. That's the great thing about Dragon Ball Z is the build-up and then the release. That's the tension that Tarantino builds. It's like a rubber band. He's trying to stretch it as far as it goes before it snaps. So the idea that conflict can be built up, right, by the previous, that's what you're shooting for. And then it's like a drop in music. Yeah. You want the energy level to change so drastically that it feels more intense. Well, you want the amount of damage that's done to Jackie Chan to be pretty catastrophic because then when he wins, it feels like he earned it. He feels like he's in danger. So it's like, oh, wow, that battle really was meaningful. Because if he lost, he was going to die. That's what makes it tense.
Okay. Look at the ridiculousness of the Kirk versus the Gorn fight. Like that is so silly and ridiculous. But it's not about the fight. He's just what is really going on in this? It's a puzzle. Like what am I doing here? Where are the weapons? I can't find weapons. I can't beat this guy. And it's all this test. So there's a reason behind the fight, and it gives the value of the fight much more because we understand after the fact, oh, this is what was going on. Kirk was clever enough to figure this out, and the aliens were just testing him. And that's what gives it value. It's not just a bunch of guys, I want prize fights, or not surface level stuff. There's a certain level of complexity to why the fight is even happening, not necessarily motivation. So there's all these other things you could talk about in a story or a narrative to render the fight to be something that it should be about. And that's why we look at episode 3 and say that's the episode in the prequels that really mattered, because that's where everything came to a head. It's like, time to be Darth Vader. This is how he gets there. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. But at least we got it. We understood that, okay, now he's evil for dumb reasons, and his body got mangled and burnt, and how we got to that point was funny. So, it could have worked out a heck of a lot better. And the fight scene was overblown. It was a bunch of unnecessary set pieces that just kept collapsing on each other, and they're fighting in flying lava platform. It's just like, oh my God, this is silly. So,
there was a small parallel. Sorry. You can go ahead.
I think the video just phrased it in such a way that confused me for a bit, but I totally agree with Glib.
I think that when he says something like technical narrative, I know that he doesn't. He's just making up a term to describe something that really just means the narrative is told without dialogue.
Right, like
it's told in action.
I always go back to the Princess Bride fight scene, even though we know the swords are kind of fake and flexible and whatever. Yeah, steel is kind of flexible, but not that flexible. But they're talking.
Feather steel is very flexible.
Yeah, I know.
Well, okay, so the thing that everybody remembers from that movie is, "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." That whatever that line is.
Sure.
And that's the reason why the battle is happening.
Oh yeah, no. That's
a fight,
But when we talk about the technical aspect, which is what he's referring to, I remember them talking about defenses, like, "Oh, you're Capofaro, haha! I thought the Benini would be perfect." Like they're actually talking about the actual techniques. I don't even know if those are real. I don't care. But this is this level of sophistication that they're understanding. This is the nature of the conflict. We're actually describing in a cordial way by the way, I'm trying to kill you with the cup of fire. I'm trying to kill you with, this is, like, it's very genuinely funny. So it's talking about the techniques themselves in the fight. It's like you see a martial art, whatever, and you see their stance. Oh, you're using the horse stance. Well, I'm going to try this stance, and you're going to do a roundhouse kick. Like, it's the same concept.
Use dodo technique to block my attack.
I like the idea that, one of the things that's so great about Kung Fu movies is that you have different forms of Kung Fu, and they're different metaphors also for battle and fighting in the Chinese traditionalism. So, you could say, he's the master of the tiger claw, but his crane is poor and weak, just like how he cannot fly. So when you keep him on the ground, he has power. If you try to, that kind of thing. Like what they're doing is they're trying to contextualize and humanize aspects of something, or create animal metaphors, whatever it is, because action is always better when it's contextualized, and the dialogue that's around violence is what people remember. That's why there's so many 80s one-liners before somebody shoots somebody. You don't really care about him, like shooting the guy. You can only kill somebody once. You shoot the guy, or you beat him up, whatever it is, but the one-liner that you get on him is that's what people are going to remember.
Oh God! Remember?
So, Mark, what were you about to say?
I was at Smud was talking about that episode 3 scene. Is that they completely have a lack of using the Force powers, but then the parallel that is playing is the Sidious versus Yoda fight, and that is almost entirely Force powers. I think they have some stupid ass a lightsaber bell at the beginning, and then they start throwing the set at each other.
Actually, when you bring up we're into this again, there's actually a better battle. And that better battle is between Yoda and Emperor Palpatine.
Yes,
because they go to they fight and they fight and they fight, and they go to the Senate, and they go to the Senate seats, and then they change the landscape by they change the fight by throwing chairs at each other with the Force. So you have Palpatine just lobbing these little platforms at Yoda, and he's just dodging and everything because he sees that he's able to. And then Yoda catches one, starts spinning it, and then throws it back at Palpatine. So things kind of change a lot. There's different parts and beats to the Palpatine versus Yoda battle, but not so much when it comes to the Obi-Wan versus Anakin battle.
The only landscape change that I remember of that battle is that eventually that machinery that they are standing on collapses because system failure or something. Then they get to the platforms, but otherwise nothing else.
I really would have preferred if the fight in episode 3 was them having little battle sequences where the consequences are the third party of the fight is the one that takes all the damage. They're fine because they're just they're such good equals. They're doing their choreography thing, and then everything's falling apart around them. But in between that, the dialogue has to be the part of the battle. That was the piece that I felt was missing. They're swinging on giant cables and stuff, and they're jumping on floating things. That's not the interesting part. What would be interesting is if they jumped onto that and then had a debate about the situation, and then Anakin was doing a good job. Whoever's has the upper hand in the battle should be the one that is taking the hits in the dialogue. So if Obi-Wan is kicking Anakin's ass, Anakin should be telling Obi-Wan about how the Jedi are blind and they couldn't even see the evil that was coming at them. And then when Anakin's winning, then Obi-Wan should be like, I should have left you on that planet. I should have never have been your teacher. And then, because then you would have gotten consequences and all that emotion out and the energy, and it would have been, it's the whole climax thing. The battle that everybody recognizes, the thing about action is that when violence breaks out in real life, that it's beyond discussion at that point. That's the thing that freaks people out a lot. So I think that adding that discussion back in the movie, because you have choreography and because you can time it and make it how you want it to, that's what makes it magical and interesting, because that's what makes it exciting for people, like I said before with the one-liners, when I'm thinking about GoldenEye in the beginning of the movie, they're 006 and 007. They're like, yeah, for England, James, let's get in there. Okay. And then you find out it's the betrayal, and later you get all the context that makes that other battle sequence relevant again. Like the actions that are taken there and the cost and how much energy you can see that 007 put into it, gets reflected into their relationship that's hinted at in the beginning of the movie and becomes consequent in the climax of it. In the battle sequence, all of those things are relevant. That's why action scenes are usually an exclamation point instead of a period at the end of a scene. Like, why do they fight? Well, the fight means that they're beyond conversation at this point. Now it's time to kick their ass. I'm either going to kill this person, knock them out or something, but I don't even know. I'm just angry and I want to beat this person up. Or they're evil and judgment has been passed. We need to kill them, or vengeance is mine, whatever it is. But it's the consequent.
No, I'm not exactly sure if you mean the similar thing, but in episode 3, what I really would have liked is very quick exchanges and then pauses in between.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they could talk with each other or not, because that would kind of also show mastery and control.
That's what I'm talking about.
Very quick, very precise movements in between. And then dialogue or pauses in between, just like gauging each other and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because that's having an eloquence for fighting and then also having the explanation behind it. And that's why people like the dialogue scene where it's like, your new empire. That is leading up to the consequence of violence.
Yeah, think about while we have a pause in between our fight, let us go back and forth with some witty banter. I'll start. You're evil.
That's one thing I personally really like about like samurai fights, where they really talk and then the fight starts and is like over in 3 moves.
Rurouni Kenshin has like a really good example of that. And there's a fight towards the end, I think, of the Kyoto arc, where the Kenshin's master faces off against this gigantic man who's just really, really tough. And for some reason they're like, why they're all confused at the moment that the gigantic man says he pauses in place. Like, why is this guy not attacking this little man that taught Kenshin Himura? And they explain it that they're both masters. Like, they're both really good at what they do. when you're facing down a master of the caliber of the man who taught Kenshin Himura, there's a barrier around him. It's like a powerful chi, and that. But in more realistic terms, it's the fact that you don't know what he's going to do, and that you know for a fact that he's a master of what he's going to do, and that he's a master of what he is of his craft, and you know that when he acts, it's going to be the best move possible. And what you're trying to do as someone who isn't him and isn't exactly on his level, you're trying to know exactly what he's going to do, so he doesn't kill you instantly. So that's why there's the better way to go between a fight between 2 masters is mostly non-fighting. Just them gauging each other out and seeing what's going to happen. That's a lot of battle. Have you ever seen like a real life martial arts tournament? A lot of what they do is not fighting. A lot of what they do is just standing around and encircling each other and everything, because they're trying to figure out what each other's going to do.
Shadow boxing.
I can actually speak from experience with that. If you match with a person of the same skill level, you know that it's best to wait for them to make a move. It's best to just anticipate, to defend. And then it's just both think that, and then just at some point it becomes this massive tension. You're like, okay, I have to make a move now. What will he want to anticipate? And then it just becomes this mind game almost, and then suddenly action breaks loose.
You don't even have to have the witty dialogue or whatever it is. You just have to have them flash and then pause and then gauge each other again.
I don't know the name of the trope, but that is found in so many things, whether it's the Japanese world of manga or anime. There has to be a trope for it where everyone's just standing around and conceptualizing, if I do this, this will happen. If this happens, he does that. Like, there's a scene in that Lone Wolf and Cub where he has to go up against that guy on the table, and they're both they both know they're master. They just stare at each other for like 40 minutes or whatever.
But it actually does also happen in real fighting when you know you have a matched opponent. It's kind of interesting.
It happens in chess all the time. I see it a lot. Anyway,
what's he gonna do?
Not 40 minutes. Not 40 minutes
in chess matches. Oh god, they take forever. Yeah, but not speed, not competitive chess, but in normal chess. Yeah.
That's the only reason why I like the Bane fight in Dark Knight Rises with Batman, is because he's taunting Batman. And he's just doing one-liner after one-liner. Victory has defeated you! And then he just...
Mr. Wayne!
You think the shadows are your allies?
I was born in
Take, for example, that's probably one of the purest definitions of a series with well-developed technical narratives throughout its fights. And Araki's grasp of how to use this type of storytelling for his battles is one of the main reasons his fight scenes have remained so enjoyable throughout the years. There
one of
is,
them just
however,
have an
another
ability
type of
that can
narrative
stop
that can run
time?
through a great fight
Yes.
scene.
That brings up a whole mess of questions in that, doesn't it?
What?
Oh, yeah, it
Say
does.
that again?
The Jojo, one of the guys can stop time.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Doesn't that bring up a whole mess of questions, like why he never uses it?
Yes.
So, not a great example, really.
I mean, I don't know. I've never seen JoJo.
The example I saw,
It's never explained.
he stops time and then goes and actively finds a steamroller and tries to drop it on someone.
No, at least
What?
in the manga, it's explained that it takes a shit ton of power from him, so you can only stop it for a short period of time.
But
Right, of
why a
course.
steamroller? Why didn't he stop time and then go over and snap the dude's neck?
Because it's steamroller.
Because
I think
Dio's character, like the villain, was like a completely insane guy, and he was like so sure of himself that he will like finish
Flatten him with a
him off
steamroller.
in a steamroller. Yes.
Why are you trying to
in-
ruin my favorite thing? Gosh, voice
In the
actor,
manga,
you
the
some kind of critic?
situation,
Trying to
the
debunk happiness.
situations are.
It's not debunking my happiness, okay? Ara, or whatever.
If I remember correctly, in the manga, the situations are always created in such a way that that's not an option.
That's not an option for me. I need a steamroller.
Exactly.
Only a steamroller will do.
Metal Gear steamroller.
Only a steamroller.
This
like
calls
a
for
bigger-
a steamroller. Choo choo, motherfucker.
A weapon to surpass Metal Gear, just a steamroller.
The giant steam.
What gives like a bigger question is that like I think like the main character has like a half a minute long dialogue with the villain when he stops time, and then he resets time. But afterwards, like a few years pass by, and he can only stop time for 1 second, and that's it.
How does he find a steamroller within 1 second?
Easily.
He's very good at finding steamrollers.
He played a lot of Where's Waldo.
Oh boy.
And that encompasses not only the fight, but everything that surrounds it. And that is the emotional narrative of a fight. I think the best
I don't know what he's getting. He's inventing these terms.
Put on the
I'm just like,
screen so they
You know
understand.
what he means.
How does
though.
it make you feel?
How do you not know what he means? He means like when he's technical narrative. Okay, what actions I think is what he means, and then emotional narrative is the backstory behind the fight. It's such a weird way of describing it.
I don't know.
But
you can also
get what he's saying.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is that you can also have, if you were to make a short film that's just a fight, you can still create that certain narrative through the fight.
Yeah, I guess. When I think of like the Gorn fight, I'm like, that's not even remotely emotional. I'm just like, oh god, this is.
No, I won't kill him. I won't fight him for you. I am a man. But you know that the emotional resonance of that is it's really supposed to be like honorable. Like, yeah, Kirk. Good, you're a good guy, Kirk. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know. I don't derive that as a narrative. That's an effect of a narrative. You cannot narrate drama. You can structure drama in the hope that you care for a character because you understand human relationships to a degree, that you care that this person is sad that someone died, but you have to be attracted to that person first. So I don't like the idea that there's a narrative that exists. I don't know in what context, and that's where I go, well, I don't care. I could watch a very good film and feel zero. Does it have an emotional narrative? It should. I might not be scared of scary movies. Does that mean it doesn't have one? I don't think so. So I don't like this, this, it makes me feel X. It's like, okay, sure, good. Anyway, Fritz has donated $3. Thank you, sir. The thing you were talking about, Smud, I'll call it mental mapping. An example of this I can think of was the fight scene in Sherlock Holmes starring Robert Downey Jr. Okay, I know.
Oh, yeah.
The best fight scene that never happened.
Yeah.
Punch to the throat.
I like those scenes so much.
I think
Up
someone
his
else
ass.
in chat was referring to a Mexican standoff. That's a slight difference, that because everyone is ready to fire and do something, but they're just waiting around. And I saw that in Xena Warrior Princess. I saw that in Westerns. You see that in all sorts of shows.
Samurai. That's all about build up again. Tension building up and then releasing that tension by everybody firing, and then it's over really quickly. Because that's what violence usually is. Really, it's like it's a bunch of oh shit, is it gonna happen? It's gonna happen, and then, oh, it's happening! Everybody do it's happening! Oh, it's over. Oh shit, that happened. That was terrible. Oh, the humanity.
Very accurate.
I think the best way to explain it is that if you think of a fight in terms of a game of chess, the technical narrative is everything that takes place on the chessboard. Each strategy, each move and counter move, while the...
I could talk about this so much if I waste everyone's time, but I won't. So anyway, that's an English opening. Could be a Polish opening. Could be a Grunfeld. Could be a Nimzo. Oh, is this backwards Sicilian? Oh, I'm going to shut up now. Okay.
Wait,
emotional narrative encompasses...
He wrote technical narrative kind of strange. Technical.
Yeah, you're right. He did spell it wrong.
Technical narrative.
Nuclear
narrative.
My technicals.
But also, I hate it when people do that. They constantly invent these terms for... just invented terms. I hate that.
If they use the word narrative properly, then I don't mind it. That they can invent a version of that. But now I'm like, okay, so the technical narrative is the story of chess where you just count the moves and that's the story.
Or let me rephrase that. I am fine with it if it makes sense and is done carefully.
I think it's better to
so
make a video
really
once you know how to use the terms that already exist. Absolutely. I mean, this is
exactly
because it's clearly confusing people. I know what he's saying. I understand what he's getting at, but it's a weird way of delivering the things to people who already know information.
Yeah, no, saying this is it just hurts my soul. I'm just like, oh.
I guess today's Smudcast is just Glib saying what I mean, but better.
Well, that's what you get when you're a native speaker, I guess.
It probably.
And you don't eat, fish and chocolate all day. So
now
ask me to explain something in another language.
Thanks, but unfortunately, I have to go. But thanks for having me on. It was pretty fun. I got to talk about this fighting stuff. We've been having like a Smud talk soon, though. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll talk.
It'd be very cool, Anakin.
Yeah,
very cool, Anakin.
All right, LitDev. Thanks a lot. Okay, so yeah, wonderful chessboard. I'm gonna shut up. Let's keep going.
Encompasses everything that takes place off the chessboard, namely the two players, who they are, what brought them here to play, and what does victory or defeat mean for each.
That's the same narrative. I don't know what he's talking about now. I'm confused.
He's talking about how actions that are just logical. It's logic versus emotion is what he's creating a dichotomy. He's using the word technical instead of logical. So all the moves on the chessboard, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna punch him in the scrotum. That'll do it. And then, and then the other side is the emotions, which is like, but how did he feel when he was punched in the scrotum?
Really?
Did it take him back to? Yeah, that's really what he's trying to create a dichotomy here. The meaning of the action and then the action's logic itself. So the idea that you plot out how you're gonna beat your enemy, you do that, and then at the same time, you also, as a storyteller, need to capture the pathos of it. You know, okay. We're here in Vietnam. We're napalming children. What's it mean? But also, we should keep napalming them because it's the smart move.
I'm still a bit confused, but okay. I think I know what you're saying.
Each individual one. In terms of a fight scene, the emotional narrative encompasses everything about the combatants up until this point.
That's the plot, dude. That's
see, that's why people need to read your books, bud. Then they can use the terms right and not upset you.
I just like the emotion, the technical narrative, the emotional. It's like, what are you getting? I don't know. If you could draw a picture, maybe that would help me. I'm a little.
You draw a flow chart of how this fight works.
Yeah. What does this mean? Oh boy, Fritz. Thanks for the donation. Also, voice regarding that fight in JoJo you were talking about. Dio could stop time for 8 seconds. While Jotaro could move in stop time for 2, Dio wanted to use a killing method that Jotaro couldn't properly counter from up close like a steamroller.
I love the contradiction of he stopped time for 8 seconds.
Yeah, they were in the middle of the bridge, and he still had time to get a steamroller.
Can you read that again to me? Because I don't have it up, so buzzed out for me slightly.
Let me try this again. Also, voice, regarding that fight in JoJo, you were talking about Dio, he's one of the characters, could stop time for 8 seconds, while Jotaro could move in stop time for 2. I don't know what that means, but that's what was written. Dio wanted to use a killing method that Jotaro couldn't properly counter from up close, like a steamroller.
So now he uses a steamroller. Yeah, okay.
I don't remember the steamroller in the manga.
He can move he can move for 2 seconds, but Dio can pause time for 8, then he still has a 6-second advantage to snap his neck.
Stop asking questions. Just consume JoJo.
JoJo is beyond.
You need to be close enough and everything to do.
I love that fucking through line of logic though. I have to use an attack. I have to use some kind of attack that is not conventional. Got it. Steamroller.
Okay. Then again, JoJo's Adventures is kind of famous for having these kind of stuff in it that are crazy moves, like absolutely insane stuff.
Like, how did he get to that? Falls apart.
Yeah,
should have gone with a jet engine or something.
Personally, I really like the first 2 parts of the manga.
Maybe it's a
time like undoes.
They have gothic horror elements that are really cool.
Maybe it's an emotional narrative that we just can't understand. I don't know. Okay.
It's like, oh yeah, steamroller. Something that now will catch you by surprises. Yeah. Kind of does.
It's their characters, their backstories, their drive and their motivation, and a well-established emotion.
Jeez, that's a lot of terms to put in the blanket of an emotional narrative, but okay, it's fine.
Every sentence a term.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
This word means 7 different things. Like, wow, okay.
Emotional narrative to a fight can override the need for a technical one. Take, for example...
All right, that I don't like, because he's saying the conflict is not... to the point of a fight scene, but yet he just described a fight scene having all these communication devices and whatever. So it's like, okay, yeah, you could have conversations where the conflict can be resolved before it comes to fighting, but then it wouldn't be a fight scene. So what are you getting at? This is a very strange way of describing the story without a fight scene. I don't know why he's doing it that way. Anyway, that's fine. We'll just follow his line.
One and only fight scene from the romantic comedy Toradora, in which protagonist Taiga attacks student body president Sumari for hurting the person that Taiga herself is in love with. Their fight never really evolves past being a chaotic brawl, but the emotion behind it is so raw and well expressed through the animation that it ends up being a far more memorable, compelling encounter than most battles from actual battle anime.
Okay, so there's a good point. So he's saying that, yeah, as Glib was stating earlier, it's not so much about the fight. That's just an expression of emotion or end of frustrations. You have to take it out on something, and you go to that, and you know why. So that's like saying, why do fights happen in the first place? People get so frustrated and confused and angry. That's their last resort.
But from what I just saw from what I showed, it's still good, well choreographed. It still looks good. The moves still make sense what they do,
and that's
still an aspect to it,
right? And that's based off what we understand and know of the character. So if the character is also a martial arts guru, and is emotionally charged, and is at their wits' end, and they get into a fight, and they have this interesting fight that's move counter move, this guy would say it's a good fight scene. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like all these things about the character have to meet up just to get a good fight scene. That's what it sounds like.
A great example of a fight scene leaning on an emotional narrative rather than a technical one is the terrific All Might vs. Nomu battle from My Hero Academia. All Might is the ultimate symbol of peace and justice. He is basically Superman of Academia's world. However, due to a wound sustained from a previous battle, he's slowly losing his incredible superhuman strength, and he's found himself far weaker and less capable than he once was, which draws into question if he can continue to actually be a superhero. And making matters worse, he must now face the monstrous Nomu, a being purely designed to be able to defeat All Might at his 100% strongest. The crux of this fight isn't really if All Might can overcome Nomu, but instead whether All Might can push through his own limitations and prove to those around him and himself that he is still capable of being the hero that everyone loves.
Well, it's both of them. It's definitely both of them, and all of what he just said is the proof that the build-up for something is more interesting than the actual thing itself. Like, however he beats him, that'll be cool. Yeah, that'll be cool. But the idea of, oh shit, this thing's happening and then this thing's happening, so the result must be uncertainty. That uncertainty being resolved is what makes it tense and interesting. That's what makes it satisfying.
I like to compare that to Rocky, because Rocky was not about, or the first movie rather, was not about winning the fight. It was about whether or not he had the capacity to train himself to become worthy of being a fighter and go the distance in the ring. And that was his triumph as on a personal level, even though technically he lost the fight. So that is where I would compare that, at least to this scenario, where you're talking about an actual physical fight or a story about physically fighting and the reasons behind that. The whole story is about him as a person who happens to be a boxer. And that's what I'm focusing on.
I think the one thing that confuses the shit out of me with this video is that he makes this incredibly hard distinction between emotional and technical, because I think you still show emotion through the technical stuff, like
yeah, for sure.
You still show emotion through choreography, and he's like he's almost speaking in a way as if there's a hard distinction between the two, and in this fight, this one mattered so much, but the other one not. I'm like, no. You know, the emotional impact is still shown through the technical choreography and everything.
Yeah, no, the characterization is still present. Whenever a character does something or does something specific or says something very unique or has a certain way about themselves, that's all characterization. So if they're fighting and they know how to fight, that tells us a history of experience of doing things a certain way. And I think in this fight, he's describing what it takes to be a hero and why it's so important, and I can't fight to my full capacity and all this other stuff. So he's talking about his limitations, and he's still striving. He's pushing. He's enduring through all his struggles, which is what hero characters do in conflicts. They, generally speaking, have high endurance for whatever the physical conflict is. And that's what we look at Solid Snake, for example, in all the games. Obviously, it's a video game, a little different. But he's able to take the hit. He can take a bullet. He can take torture. He can do all these things and still do the mission, finish the goal. So that is typical of protagonists. And in this case, I think he does actually win the fight in this clip. I don't remember exactly. But this is all dramatic, melodramatic stuff.
Yes.
If you found yourself getting unusually emotional at the conclusion of this fight, it's because the show did such a good job of weaving All Might's personal story arc into the fight itself.
I would say no. I would say no, because I don't know a damn thing about All Might, and I saw that scene, and I understood it because while they were fighting in an anime fashion, there's 2 minutes go past in about 10 seconds where he's describing and doing flashbacks, and they're showing stuff. What he's struggling as. I think he's teaching one of his students how to become a hero and what it means to be a hero, which is very reminiscent of One Punch Man, the simplicity of Saitama and what he's doing. Like, that's the sort of stuff that we understand and grasp with, because we read a comic book like Superman, we get Superman. What is he doing? He's the last guy of a dead planet, and regardless of that, instead of trying to preserve his own style of life, he sees himself as a person, and he's sacrificing himself at every opportunity for the little guy, for the kid on the ground, for the mom and pop shop, for whatever. That's the beauty of him, of being a hero, is sacrifice. And, whoa, what happened to the video? We jumped into wrestling all of a sudden. What happened here?
Oh yeah,
Message coming in.
It's a continuation to that scene.
Did we miss something?
We need to delve into the worlds, now bear with me, of professional wrestling. No, don't unsubscribe. Don't unsubscribe. This will be interesting. No, damn it. Generally, there's two major criteria you can judge a pro wrestler by: their in-ring ability and their mic skills. In-ring ability is a wrestler's technical proficiency within the squared circle. It's their aptitude to deliver and receive moves, to flow from sequence to sequence and sell the idea that this is a real, actual combat encounter the audience is watching, and not a pre-scripted physical pantomime. Mic skills, on the other hand, relate to, yes, a wrestler's ability to talk on a mic, but also to sell their character. The ability to get their fictional persona over with the fans and have them cheer or boo accordingly, as well as help control the direction and emotional arc that their character goes on. Where this relates back to our discussion is that in-ring ability is essentially a wrestler's capacity for selling the technical narrative of a match, while mic skills is their ability to sell the emotional narrative of one. But I think what's worth noting is
I find this an absolutely horrible comparison.
Yeah.
I get what he's saying. You don't get what he's saying?
I get it. I just find it very bad because just maybe it's because I know jack shit about wrestling and don't like watching it. But
no, his terms are all over the place.
Surely it would be just better to go to a jiu-jitsu sparring match or something like that, because then they actually want to. They're actually doing stuff on the cuff, but obviously they don't want to hurt each other. They just want to best
UFC,
the other person.
baby.
It would probably be best to compare an actual fight.
An actual fight, yeah.
Because in the world, in universe, in films, they are actual fights. So wouldn't it be best to compare it to real actual fights?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like, I get the idea that it's narratively pre-scripted in a film for people to do certain things, but the whole point is that it's trying to mimic a real fight as accurately as possible. So why would you compare it to something else mimicking a real fight, and then you need to compare both things mimicking a real fight to a real fight anyway?
Yeah.
I'm going to compare all the fights. All the fights.
That'd be like me comparing a pear and a banana as attempts to be like an apple.
Okay.
Well, the banana clearly is better than a pear. You mean?
Well, sorry. Banana's a bad example. Okay, we'll go with grapefruit, and it's like a grapefruit is trying to be like an apple, and so I'm going to compare it with another fruit that tries to be an apple. It's like, well, why not just compare it to an apple and see how well it does? Don't compare how both things try to compare to an apple. Just compare them to a fucking apple.
Apples and oranges. What a great rule in life. Let's do that. Oh dear.
Such a fucking long way. Taking the long way around to do this.
If only they had like one semester or maybe 1 week of like logic when they started writing essays or something. Maybe they actually could have, not said stuff like this. But that's okay. Fritz, thank you. Remember the reminder that Horikoshi has turned Deku into fucking Spider-Man. Really? All right. I don't know what we're talking about. Deku, I think, is from an anime, so I'm assuming it's My Hero Academia, because that was the anime we just watched. Right? I don't know. Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not a weeb.
I don't actually watch My Hero Academia. I've just seen clips because they're so bloody meme-worthy. I'm like, what the hell is that? Anyway.
That while wrestlers can achieve success by being proficient in either discipline, it's only the true greats that can do both. And the exact same is true of fighting.
I don't know. I think The Undertaker didn't have any emotional goddamn narrative. He just sort of stood there looking grim. And the Ultimate Warrior just sort of screamed at you. I think the most two popular, I remember from the 80s at least, were Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. I'm sure there were more like Mr. Perfect and Bret the Hitman Hart and all these other old guys. But
it's all about who can perform with the most bravado.
It's a lot of
stage presence and
crazy things, they say. Yeah.
Who can do the coolest backflip off the top rope? Why is it Rey Mysterio always?
Scenes. Fight scenes can definitely be interesting by relying on either a strong narrative of either kind. It's the true exemplaries that succeed on both levels.
Okay, this is where I'm like, dude, you are like in the forest, and it's like I see pine needles, And you're like, yes, and where do pine needles come from? And he just doesn't know what he's talking about. So he got it the first time a few minutes ago when he talked about the idea of a plot. He didn't say the word, but he's in the forest. He's describing all the little details. And he's not like, what is this forest made of? What is a forest? So in this scene, we already know that Spike is a Jeet Kune Do kind of kid or guy. He's been practicing on his spaceship with Jet, or rather a Jet spaceship, and he's practicing there. So when he does all these moves, he's like, okay, yeah, he's like Bruce Lee. He's dodging and weaving. And we get his character. And we know this guy's character as well, because he was been chasing him all this time. They have information on him. He's kind of like that boyfriend of the girl he was checking out, who also is also on the run. So we understand, hey, this is how Spike would behave. He would be smooth and cool. And the reason why is we like him. We're attracted to Spike. He has certain elements that we find attractive.
He's hot.
He's so handsome.
He's got lots of things going for him. I think the general attribute or adjective that I would use is cool. He's a cool guy.
It's a shame he's Asian and thus has a small dick.
Well, he does have green. Hair. So that I don't know what flavor of Asian that might be. But
that was random.
Yeah.
No, he's an Asian with a big dick.
Oh yeah. He's a tall dude. He's like 6'4" or something. He's huge. But it's funny to see a guy who's that tall do Jeet Kune Do, because Jeet Kune Do is very mesomorphic sort of fighting style. But we get what he's doing, and you combine that with a production value of Yoko Kanno's music. Pretty decent. This is a pretty decent fight scene. It's not over the top, crazy animation, but it's quality enough. And usually the first episode of anime is that way, so it reels you in. Oh, I want to watch more. So it's a combination of things, as it always is, with storytelling, characterization, and plot. He is a guy getting a bounty. He is going to get into physical scenarios, and he gets into so many. He gets into his chase scenes. He gets into his ship, and there's all kinds of combat in space right at the end of the episode. This is one of, I think, 2 fight scenes. I can't remember. No, this is only one. So there's lots going on in this story. And they focus very tightly on the plot. So we get these characters. We like these characters. They're attractive to us, and they're doing the thing we like them to do, which is be a bounty hunter. So
which anime is this from?
Sorry?
Which anime is this from?
Oh, this is the greatest anime of all time, Cowboy Bebop.
Oh.
So if you don't like anime, and you've never seen this, and you still don't like anime, don't bother with anime ever again.
Yeah, basically.
You shouldn't
be watching anime.
No, you shouldn't.
You shouldn't be watching anime anyway. It's un-American.
Just watch Cowboy Bebop, and if you like it, you're good to go.
I'll give it a shot.
There you go.
And it's not an easy thing to do considering how much writing and foresight it takes, but there are a number of exceptional authors that really shine at this. George Morikawa of Hajime no Ippo is quite possibly the best at it in the entire industry, but we have covered his series in a previous video, which you should totally go check out if you have not already.
Okay, if you don't know Hajime no Ippo, obviously it's a boxing anime, but it's the most heavily animated boxing anime. So it has crazy amounts, I guess you would call that technical narrative of the story, because everything's bobbing and weaving and uppercuts and haymakers and jabs and this and that.
That would have been an illegal punch if you'd hit him in the head there, just want to say.
Really? I have no idea. But it's
called a rabbit punch.
Oh yeah?
You're not allowed to do it.
You can't punch people really quickly in the face?
No, if you dodge behind them, punch them in the back of the head.
Right.
Oh,
you can't punch somebody in the back of the head, basically. You're not supposed to. Because it's really bad for you.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Get punched in the front of the head. That's okay.
Oh, all right.
It's a little bit better.
Yeah, that's good.
But another author who is especially proficient at weaving the technical and emotional narrative of a fight is Naruto's Masahide Kishimoto. There's several great examples I could point to here: Rock Lee vs. Gaara, both Naruto vs. Sasuke fights, but the real standout for me is the exceptional Kakashi vs. Obito battle from Naruto Shippuden, particularly in its animated form. This fight is an especially great example of using both types of
Naruto
narrative
sucks.
because it essentially separates each narrative type into its own timeline.
Shut
the
up,
technical narrative
Naruto.
takes place with
You're
the two ninja
stupid.
battling tooth and claw in the present, while the emotional one plays out in a
animated, I'll
series
give
of
it that.
flashbacks from the pair's past, as we watch the two young shinobi train, get to know each other, and even become friends. Both sequences are beautifully cut together to make a fight scene that is all at once edge of your seat intense and exciting, while also being touchingly poignant and emotional, encapsulating in a mere 17 minutes not only a blisteringly brutal and well animated combat encounter, but also the story of two friends whose relationship tragically broke down over time, and whose paths mean that they now must face one another.
Okay, so this can be attributed just to drama. It doesn't have to be a fighting, and this is why the use of flashback is so heavy. I think this fight takes about 2 or 3 episodes. I can't remember when it last time I saw him. Obviously, it was a long time
Can I
ago.
ask, why is he exclusively going for anime? Why hasn't he talked about live action?
He's a
Like
fucking
Apple.
weeb, dude.
Because it's too complicated.
Gosh.
Honestly, it's too complicated.
The idea that you're going to find the best fight scenes in cinema or television through anime is like,
Well, you know what's
try a
funny?
different medium.
The funny thing about Naruto, they actually stole direct cutscenes from other movies and you could actually compare
Yeah,
the.
I know.
Yes.
Oh, you saw
they
that?
did.
Oh,
There's
you did.
well, people say references, but
It's rotoscoping 1-to-1. It's just like here's the scene, here's the frame, here's the scene, here's the frame. Let's draw it. So, yeah, no, there's plenty of those. They stole it actually from Cowboy Bebop's Knocking on Heaven's Door, which I found
would be
funny.
nice if he's talking about fight scenes in general, because he just says as a fight scene, so it's very broad. So maybe expand upon what makes a good fight scene beyond just anime, beyond just animation. Live action involves swords, involve guns, involve fist fights, be it martial arts or just regular people fighting like Fight Club.
Yeah, I think he would have a
fucking
hard
anime,
time,
dude.
if he were to
Enough
compare
with the anime.
like Vinland Saga to Naruto or Hajime no Ippo. Like they're all very different. Like a boxing match, a prize fight is very different than what's going on here. So it's very different stories, and you just can't compare them very well, even if they're still fighting. That's missing the point entirely.
That I understand people are saying, well, it's an anime channel. It's like, yes, I understand it's a channel, but he's talking about this is he talking on this subject as if he's just referring to anime?
Exactly.
Or
Yes,
is he saying
dude.
in general?
If you want a good action scene, if you want a good fight scene, it has to be anime. What part of that don't you understand?
He hasn't said what makes a good fight scene in anime. He's just said what makes a good fight scene. So is he specifically thinking about what makes a good fight scene in anime, or is he thinking in general for movies?
No,
and
the
TV?
answer to what makes a fight scene interesting is anime.
Right. Okay.
So
You know,
obviously,
what's the thing where it's like when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you're a weeb, everything looks like anime.
oh. So
I'm
if you
just
were to
fucking with you,
do a more analytical approach, you would say, what are the effects of fight scenes on the audience? What do they like? What do they get excited over? What works? And you look at all the fight scenes from, samurai to westerns to, I don't know, TV, like Xena Warrior Princess, all that crap. You compare, okay, why does it work? And then you figure out, you reduce that analysis to 1 or 2 ideas. And you say, these are the elements, the narrative of emotion or the narrative of the fight itself, and then you say why. And he sort of touched upon it, that there's a story going on with the fight itself, that the characters are learning and adapting, and then there's the reasons and motivations of the story of the characters that aren't about fighting. So, and he just sort of throws that backwards. That's why I said he's like in a forest. He's describing the pine needles that have fallen. And he goes, oh, look at these. They're called pine needles. It's like, yes, and what did they come from, sir? And he can't put 2 and 2 together. That's what's sort of driving me nuts.
I retract my statement. Shatter quite correct. He did talk about Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris as a fight. So, okay, not solely anime.
I know, but
I do apologize.
He did not narrow his view down. He just sort of talked in general. And I'm like, dude, you can't just say that in general. You have to get very specific.
There's so many fight scenes in cinema. Holy shit!
Yep. Or
he didn't even show a single samurai movie, did he?
Yeah,
No, not yet. Anyway,
This
Like
Has
how
he
would,
shown a lightsaber
if he's a
duel
fucking weeb, then he could like
I know.
just show like a Akira Kurosawa movie.
I know.
in
Fucking
any
weeb, dude.
Like, can you imagine?
any
He is.
superhero films?
Well, no, but can you imagine him describing a chase scene as action, like 2 cars? Like what?
Oh no, he'd just go to Tokyo Ghoul.
Oh yeah, like yeah. You just jump to an anime. It's like, oh yeah, these cars. No.
Car anime.
What is the
Oh my
technical
god, that's
narrative?
a JoJo reference.
Oh no.
Deja vu. I've been in this place before.
Fucking weeb.
Riding on the
Gas,
street,
gas,
and I know it's my time to go.
Can't believe you, man. What the heck is wrong with you people?
Oh my god.
Sorry, I know the meme.
That's not a JoJo reference. What are you talking about?
Unbelievable.
That's initial D. You neat. You non-noob. Or you not neat. What is the?
Anime in my Christian YouTube channel?
Err.
Seriously?
Anyway, let's go.
And really encapsulates the best of what a fight can be. Not just a string of potential gifts, but a true story in and of itself.
There he
Something
is.
not only
That's the man.
breathtaking and exciting to watch, but something that can further the overarching narrative of our story, as well as revealing more about our characters than perhaps a regular sequence could. As it's here we see them really fight and struggle for their core beliefs, and letting a fight be more than just a fight, more than just an exchange of blows, letting them become true stories in and of themselves. This, my friends, is what makes a fight scene interesting.
Oh.
Okay.
That's like saying
you.
anything that has stuff in it, if there's more than just the one thing about the stuff, makes it better. You're like, okay.
Yes.
What if all of those things are shit?
So, like, just abbreviated. Instead of making a 10-minute video, you can just say, what makes an action scene, what makes a fight scene interesting? The things around it. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The stakes.
Well,
of the
everything that
character.
makes it up, everything that's in there.
It's just like you're missing the forest for the trees. And
Yeah. I mean, it can have the most interesting characters and interesting conflict, but so boring choreography that you just don't care about it.
yeah, I mean, if you look
Like
at
the Obi-Wan Vader
old
fight.
old Nintendo games, for example, that have really cool premises, but they're poorly designed, like they're so hard, or there's not enough art and animation for you to be invested in the character because they don't look that great. When you know the story is like, hey, it's an interesting science fiction concept of having a robot trying to discover their identity, but they're running out of memory and they can't make new memories and they've forgotten their homeland and all this other stuff. Like, oh, maybe they're part of a whole civilization of robots. Like there's the cool ideas, but just executed within a JRPG of the 82 or 83. And you just can't follow along. You're like, oh my God, this is horrible. There's lots of stories like that in Japanese anime, manga, video games, etc. So, yeah, no, there's beautiful stuff out there, but I wish we had a better analytic approach to fight scenes, and then you could really get some good stuff. Like when we talked about John Wick, those were made by actual stunt guys, and they knew what made a scene work. And what they did, the first 10 minutes of John Wick, the first movie, it goes all into his character. Who was he with? Why did she die? What happened to her afterwards? What happened to his dog? All set up, and then, we got all we need. It's not a great reason, but it's a good enough reason. And it fuels the entire narrative that this dude would react that way, and the symbol that the dog meant to him was so strong that he will go on a killing spree of anyone who stands in his way.
Shouldn't have killed this dog.
You do not kill dogs, guys.
Just don't do it.
You don't do it. The only
Just
people who
don't
can
do
do that are veterinarians, and they have very good reasons.
Don't steal Keanu Reeves' car. It's just don't do it. It's stupid. What are
that
you
was
crazy?
a nice car. Yeah, that was a beautiful car. Nice classic. But anyway, all
So
right.
basically, if you want to figure out a fight scene, anime is the answer. Just make anime.
The rest is just him talking about
Start a Patreon.
Patreon. Yeah, that's a
Patreon.
Subscribe to my Patreon. There you go.
Give me money.
If you want more of that, subscribe to my OnlyFans. You know what I mean? Subscribe to my Lonely Fans.
So yeah, next time you cook a steak, put some stuff around it. Next time you have dinner, don't just eat one thing. Next time you buy clothes, don't just buy the same shirt over and over again. What else? Can we
Don't
say?
watch Shrek 3 again. It's not very good.
Okay.
And
Subscribe to my nothing because I have nothing to subscribe to.
Oh.
remember to drink your scotch in moderation.
Yes.
Neat. And have a good one.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Turn on the lights on your bicycle when you're driving in the night.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. That was only 2 hours and 40 minutes. We were pretty good. I actually enjoyed the video because it allowed us to talk about cool stuff related to the video for once. And we all had something.
Check out his video. Check out Super Eyepatch Wolf's video on fake martial arts. It's really good. It's hilarious. It's a very good introduction to the world of bullshido. Which
Steven Seagal type of
great,
bullshit.
yeah, absolutely. It's great with like psychics and no touch knockout masters and all sorts of weirdness. In general, I don't think I'm a subscriber, but I really like that video. So check it out.
Does it have anime in it?
Doesn't have any anime in it.
Yeah.
Remind me, who's Steven Seagal?
Steven Seagal is a action star from the 80s, right? But the thing that he knows that gives him credibility, martial art is Aikido, which is about redirecting your opponent's energy and doing these flips and stuff. And it's not really a viable martial art, but it looks fine on camera. But what's funny is that as Nick from Cumtown for the podcast said, he looked kind of like skinny in the movie that everybody knows him for. I think it's Hard to Kill or something like that, or I don't know. They're all generic named. But then he just progressively gets fatter and does less in each movie. And at this point, he's like 60 and he's still doing action movies, except now he just sits down the whole movie. He doesn't really do anything. He just has
And still somehow flips people over.
No, he's got...
Yeah, exactly. He fights people while sitting down, and he's like a sniper that's shooting people 2 feet away from him. It's ridiculous.
He's always wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. And he has an indeterminate... Like, nobody can tell what race this guy is because he changes accent each movie. So, like, one movie he's talking like a black guy. One movie he's talking like an Italian. There's this movie where he's supposed to be an Italian cop that's like a loose cannon or whatever, and he just kicks everybody's ass. And people like it, and I don't get it because it's just the worst shit in the world. It's like, where's Tony? Hey, I'm looking for the guy. Hey, what are you doing? And he can't commit to an accent. He can't commit to shit. So it's always half-assed. It's always falling apart right in front of him. He's just walking around a bar, hitting people in the knuckles with a hammer or some shit.
Oh no!
It's like, where's Tony? I'm looking for the guy. And then he'll give out. Next movie, he'll give out like Zen advice in like a Chinese accent. Like, you have to move like water when the water's flowing, not when it's still. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Steven?
He's got that.
And he's genuinely an asshole, and so that's what you get.
He's got that one move he does where it's like a karate chop to the neck, but the guys who get hit by it like fly like a clothesline. Like every move is like, it's so funny. Like, you see it coming like every second move. It's like boom, boom. The guy like flies legs up in the air. What the hell did he do?
It's because Aikido, his supposed mastery or whatever. Because I took some Aikido classes. It's basically bullshit. And the thing that's funny about it is that there's no like aggressive moves that you can do. When you know Kung Fu, you can stage a very interesting fight because the people that do the wushu training as the sport, it's like a gymnastics routine basically. So you can get a lot out of that. And then anybody that's a real fighter is going to know MMA techniques or a combination of techniques. But he only knows like 5 techniques. And that's the reason why you should watch this Super
trusting on people coming to him.
Yeah, exactly. He just stands in the middle of the room or he walks around the room picking up objects and just hitting them with it. And he never takes damage really. He'll get shot in the arm or
enemies do
something.
most of the work when falling over.
It's funny. There was one film he gets hurt, and it was like the first or second one he did. And ever since then, never gets touched.
Never. The only time he got touched was in this recent video that off the Movie Maker where he's fighting Mike Tyson. And it's a Chinese production, so I guess the Chinese respect Mike Tyson more than they respect Steven Seagal. So Steven Seagal gets hit in the face or whatever.
Mike Tyson's such a cool guy.
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
Isn't he in Ip Man or IP Man, however you pronounce it? He's in one of those films. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'm sure he is.
He is.
Fights Donnie Yen.
One of the sequels.
Ip Man to me is just transparent Chinese propaganda. I can't get into it. The first one I like, and then the other ones I'm like, meh.
I think it's quite a lot of vilifying it, or trying to show how much better martial arts are compared to boxing.
Really?
It's garbage at that. Time. It's so garbage at that.
Wushu compared to boxing?
Have you ever seen Fearless with Jet Li? That's that guy, Hua Yuanji or whatever his name is. I like the stories. He's supposed to be Ip Man's protege or something like that. I don't remember what it is, but there's this mythic cycle about these guys who were really good at martial arts and then had this symbolic victory over Europeans, something like that. And then that's like a. The thing is that martial arts are frequently, and kung fu in China are frequently used as a sign of honor and Chinese spirit as far as the Communist Party is concerned. So like you have to give kung fu respect because it's the symbol of China.
Gun.
The story of the Chinese MMA fighter who started challenging kung fu masters.
That's in Super Eyepatch Wolf's video, so check it out.
Yeah, there's also a Absolute Mad Lads by Count Angle about that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's great because he's like this mediocre coach that started to challenge all these masters to battles.
He's an MMA
and he was beating
fighter.
up all these kung fu guys.
He's beating the shit out of kung fu masters.
And that's bad because China makes a lot of money off of kung fu.
Yeah.
And, like, it's a big thing. So if you invalidate that, then you're invalidating a lot of things that are
his social credit score got lowered and everything.
Can we back up? Who's this guy and where can I see this?
I'll link it.
What's his name, man? I don't remember.
So funny to watch.
Chinese MMA.
I know you can just walk in and like challenge the dojo.
Was he an American guy?
Well, you can do that, but they did this on TV, and so he did it in front of all of China, and was like, "Oh, that wasn't scripted. That wasn't supposed to happen." You know, so he got punished by the authorities for making a fool out of ancient Chinese culture.
Oh, that Asian guy. I remember. Yeah, no, it's on YouTube. He's definitely there. Yeah, I heard about him.
The only type of kung fu that's actually relevant is what is it? Not Wang Chun or whatever, but
Wushu.
It's not. It's karate. There's one type of karate that's actually useful.
Karate.
But I don't know. Chinese kung fu. I don't think you're going to get very much out of that if you want to learn how to fight for real.
Absolute mad.
I do remember.
I'm definitely watching this.
I do remember Bruce Lee. I can't remember who wrote about it. Whether it was his documentary or his wife wrote about it. The same way how Hong Kong has, well, any place has restaurants. So it's like, don't go to that restaurant. This one's the best. Bruce Lee was like, yeah, no, there's certain dojos you only go to learn actual good martial arts, at least at the time. So it's the same concept of like where you go to school and who the master is and what they're teaching. Because I remember a guy from high school.
He obliterates him.
Yeah.
See, the only thing I can say about Bruce Lee, because I didn't like comparing him to other fighters, is that if he were around in modern day, he would definitely be the same kind of character, like at the same age, but he would be studying MMA. Jeet Kune Do would be MMA.
Yes.
Functional fighting techniques and functional living techniques was what he was all about. And that was why he was an interesting and charismatic person. Small guy, so I wouldn't say that he could just kick anybody's ass. I don't think that there's a person in Hollywood or a person in MMA or whatever that can just kick everybody's ass.
Right.
Like, it's not John Jones. It's not, I don't know, whoever you want to pick. There's no one guy that can just kick everybody's ass.
There is a guy.
The one traditional martial art that I know of that has a lot in common with modern self-defense technique is actually ninjutsu.
See, I don't know if that's bullshit or not. I've never seen.
I did practice
ninjutsu.
I did practice ninjutsu for 4 years, and I had a lot of friends who also did Krav Maga at the time, and it's extremely similar. Like almost all the techniques are the same. Just ninjutsu has a lot of techniques you also learn with different kinds of weapons. So it's basically like traditional martial arts, but for Japan.
It's curious.
So there's a lot of self-defense that actually does work. That is good. It also teaches you how to fall, how to roll away, and all that kind of stuff. But still, you have to.
I don't advocate for anybody
different
studying traditional martial arts. I suggest studying jujitsu. Oh, actually, that's not true. I guess
agree.
traditional boxing for the sake of learning how to punch, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I would suggest modern jiu-jitsu. And then,
I would agree with that. Just saying, if you want to do something traditional, that it can be used, but is not the most efficient.
Most people that seek out traditional stuff are like trying to get other kinds of stuff going for them. I feel like they're trying to do more of a performative thing. And I just like the idea of training to be able to beat somebody up, because that's what's going to give you the real confidence.
If you want to do that, go for stuff like Krav Maga or boxing or
I do know
stuff.
It's all contextual, you know what I mean? Like you just want to learn techniques, and it'll come together. You'll be able to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
I remember the conversation my guy I knew from back in the day. He was talking about Krav Maga and Aikido, and he's saying those are like the opposites.
Yeah,
Krav Maga is like super aggressive, and it's not so much a martial art as it is a philosophy of what do you do, because it's taught to the Israelis, I think, in the military.
It's an Israeli thing,
and they don't just train with like fists; they train with like guns and knives, and it's
objects,
anything.
Yes, pens, pencils.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You can use to defend yourself.
So it's very aggressive. Whereas Aikido, and I actually knew a guy in high school who I don't know if I told this story to you guys before, but he was I think he was South American. He was very aggressive and sexual. Like I'm like a ladies' man sort of dude, very athletic, etc. And then he went to take Aikido, and his whole demeanor, like his whole personality, was totally chill. It was very funny, and he always talked about the path of peace and how to treat people. So it was a very
such stupid ass bullshit, because it's like you go to do the move, and then and it's like no, don't attack me like this, attack me like this. I'm like, but that's not how I would attack you. So why are you teaching me that? Don't tell me. If you're good at martial arts, then I should, as an untrained person in it, go to attack you, and you should just immediately have something ready to go. You should embarrass me.
Well,
if you want me to be your student, embarrass me, and then I'll be like, yes, sensei. I get it, because I don't know shit. And you get that all the time with anybody who actually knows martial arts when you're facing off them. Like if you're fighting a boxer and they immediately start jabbing at you and pressing the advantage, you're like, oh shit, this is a boxer. I better do something. I better know how to do anything here. I don't know what I'm doing here. Or somebody that is a Greco-Roman wrestler and immediately goes for the double hooks and gets you on the ground. You're like, well, now I'm fucked. Now what am I supposed to do? Jiu-jitsu, whatever, they get the mount. There's all sorts of different things that are going to come at you. And it's only when you actively get into the process of practicing what people are talking about, and you get out of that like, I am at one with the river, I am the flow. Step out of the path of aggression. Like, no, that's not what you do.
It wasn't anything philosophical in like the way he talked. It was just his attitude toward life. Like he would look at people as not sexual objects. So I would say
that's pretty funny.
I would say he was a lot more nicer and friendlier. But still, he was still athletic. He still, he went to class and this and that. But he was a very different person from grade 9 to grade 10. And I don't know exactly what they taught him, because I never saw him fight. But the philosophy he was spouting was like, it sounded nice. Like he was a better person as a result. And I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. If you have any sort of physical discipline, it's going to affect you mentally. I think that's totally healthy. I don't think it should be a reason to go think I'm going to start breaking up fights. But I think any discipline that you take, whether it's, Tai Chi is a great discipline, I think, for learning, you should do. I think everyone should have some sort of athletic sensibility about them. We wake up in the morning, do some stretches, work out for 20 minutes, whatever it is. Stick with it. That's the main thing.
You feel good, you get off any excess energy you have. It's a discipline, because you've got to obviously turn up every day, every week, whatever.
Sure.
You've got to remember all your
all
your moves and patterns. It's a good brain training exercise.
Just as an addition, I know of a couple of guys who did ninjutsu and then went to MMA and decided ninjutsu is usable but not the best. One of the reasons for that is ninjutsu used to be what the Japanese military taught you.
I'm talking about this despite the fact I've not learned any martial arts whatsoever. I've practiced the martial art of bar fights. That's about it.
Well, that's one way to learn. Practice is the best way to learn.
Beer Steins is brass knuckles. Yeah, perfect.
I will always say a person who has been in 1,000 fights will always fight better than a person who has been in 1,000 trainings.
Oh God, my buddy, you always say I would never ever fight my dad. Like there's just no like he knows 20 different martial arts. His dad knows one. It's just like
my brothers will never fight me. They gave up.
Yeah, it's funny. All right, one more super chat. We'll call it a night. Let's see. Joe Crazy. That video also goes over how China is willing to destroy a man's life because he beat up a kung fu master. Yes, this is the same guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I like that video a lot. It covers a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of introductions to other things in that video. You should make more of that. That's the constructive part of the criticism to Mr. Eyepatch Wolf. One would be, obviously, the summation is that you should use the terms that other people are going to recognize as writers, like figure that out instead of like technical narrative. It's a little too much. And then the other thing is that making the summary videos is my favorite thing, where tackling a subject in its holistic sense, like all of the fake martial arts. That's interesting. There's so many little events in history that are fun to research, like the Dojo Wars, which is why OK I's weird story, Oki, I don't know how he pronounces his name, but he also has a video on that, so check that out too. If you're interested in this sort of stuff. More of that.
All right. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. Please keep your suggestions coming. I'll be updating the list next week. I wanted some of the older videos to pop in, so I didn't mind this one, even though it was on the 5th voting channel. But hey, we still got a lot to go. I just don't like not getting them, but I'm unfortunately have to come to the conclusion that we will not get to some just because they will never ever get voted on, and that's just how it goes. So sorry about the suggestions not hitting it, but please keep them coming, keep the voting going, and we'll try to see you guys real soon. So